Welcome to the Monster Castle Radio Show. For the extreme paranormal listener. And here is your host, the Wolfman, Mike.
Yeah. This is where the real freaks hang out, alright? Yeah. Let's hear some rock and roll, baby, yeah!
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Monster Castle Paranormal Radio. And this is your host, the Wolfman, Mike.
Alright, yeah! Can you dig it? Yeah!
And I have my panel, and I would, what should I call you guys? My monster crew?
Wolf Pack.
Wolf Pack.
Obvious.
All right. Okay. The Wolf Pack. We got Jeff the Gray.
All right. Here I am. Hey, guys.
And we've got Darren.
I'm here.
We should give you some kind of a title too, but we'll come up with something yet. And our fans, I think we're going to call our fans the Monster Freaks. What do you think, guys?
It's really catchy.
Like it. You should ask them what I
Yeah,
should
if
call.
they like it. That's right, if they like it. Well, what do you guys think out there? If there's somebody in the chat room. Here we go. We got yep. There he's it's
Les, isn't that Les W?
It's Les, yeah.
All right.
Okay, so he wants to know if there's any action going on. All right, this is our guest, Jordan Bonaparte. Can you say hi to everyone?
Hello, everybody. How you doing? Monster freaks.
Oh, yeah. He's all right. We're going to get into some really cool stuff. It's a Canadian paranormal show. And I was looking for somebody that might know something about the Oak Island mystery and the Bell Island boom and the what's that? The UFO sighting. The
Shag Harbor?
Shag Harbor, yeah.
Oh, yeah. You're right up my alley with this stuff.
Yeah. And that's all it. That's
You
all
found the right person. If I have any skills in this world, it's that I know about the Bell Island boom, Oak Island money pit, and the Shag Harbor UFO sighting. So
that's what I want to talk about. And
you found your unicorn.
I got a song called White Unicorn, actually. But
Is it about me?
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
You never know. Sometimes I write things and I don't know what it's about until later.
Yeah. So you found the right guy. These things are. I'm from Nova Scotia, so Oak Island is very near my house. It's about probably about a 40-minute drive. I've been there a whole bunch of times, toured the island several times, and met a lot of the. Sorry.
How far north is it?
Well, I'm in Halifax. Oak Island is again like a 40-minute drive, so it's pretty much the eastern tip of Canada, pretty close to it if you look at it on a map.
How far from the States?
Oh God, where are the states at from here?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
We're not far from Boston. Like that'd be
Okay.
like if you to get to from Halifax where I live to Boston, I think it's like a 8 or 10 hour drive. Something
Hey,
that
I'll be there. I'll be there this our Thanksgiving, the U.S. Thanksgiving holiday. So
Okay, cool. Well, we should come. You should come up around here in the summer. It's like it gets the winters. There's not a whole lot going on, but in the summer there's a lot to do. And in fact, if you're into Oak Island, they do private tours during the summer where it's costs next to nothing. You can get a ticket, and you walk through the island and you go through all the kind of the cool spots from the show. And you'll get to meet some of the characters, but some of the cast from the show because they're there filming as these tours are going on. And the tour leader is in fact Charles Barkos, who's one of the guys on the show. His title on the show is just Oak Island Historian, but he's also the tour leader. So I've met him a whole bunch of times. In fact, I've had him on my show. I did a 3-part series on Oak Island. Part 1 covers just the timeline of the treasure hunt and basically what's happened with the island since for the last 221 years, basically. The second part of that series is an interview with Charles Barkos about his history with the island. And the third is an interview with David Blankenship, who, if anyone who follows this story, they'd know who David Blankenship is because he's been there for the majority of his life, and his family has pretty much been leading the hunt for the last 40 or 50 years.
Can you start at the beginning and do a timeline a little bit? When did?
Yeah, I'll give you the Coles Notes version because the timeline. Okay. There's so many people involved that we could talk probably for 2 or 3 hours tonight, and it would still, unless you had a pen and paper taking notes, it would be hard to get it out. But basically, so Oak Island is a small island in Atlantic Canada, so the eastern part of Canada. There's where Oak Island sits. It's in an area called the Mahone Bay, which is basically just a big bay full of a whole bunch of small islands. I think there's about 200 of them in there. So Oak Island is one of many islands in this one area. The island itself is very tiny. You can walk the perimeter of it probably in I don't know, in an hour and a half or something. It's not a big island at all. Anyway, this whole story starts 221 years ago. And there are different versions of this story because a lot of this stuff is disputed because it's so long and the record is so foggy. But I'll give you the most commonly accepted version, and the version of the story as it's told in the television show, The Curse of Oak Island. And what that story is basically that there was a young guy, a teenager. He was on a boat in the bay, traveling around where these islands were. And it's at nighttime, and just like my podcast, the Nighttime Podcast. So it's at nighttime, and he's out on this boat, and he sees on this small island some lights. So what his initial thought was that it was somebody hiding something, because back in the day, like this was during the time when there was a lot of like smuggling and rum running, and people were using these islands to hide whatever it is they wanted to hide from the mainland. They go out in an island, bury it. So he took note of where he saw these lights, assuming it was people with a lantern. And what he did was the next morning he went back there and went to where he saw the light. But he didn't find anything unusual. The only thing really he saw was a tree with underneath the tree or under some of the branches was a indentation in the ground, and above the indentation there was a branch of the tree that appeared to have the remains of a pulley. Like there was just basically like a wheel there, as if at one point there was like ropes and stuff connected to it. And he thought, oh, yeah.
Was it old? Was it old at that point?
Yeah, very old and rusted and falling apart. And again, this is kind of a bit lore. Like there's not like photos or anything of this, but he was said to see the very old ruins of a pulley system. So it was described as kind of like a little wheel there.
Do you think they could have used it for torturing people?
That could have been, but there is some torture in this story. So we'll get to that part. So anyway, what this guy ends up doing is he feels like whoever was here must have buried something. So with a shovel, He digs down in the indentation. He gets, I think, about 2 feet down before he finds a layer of flagstones, which is basically just a bunch of flat stones, just forming kind of a solid flat surface about 2 feet under the ground. He pulls up the flagstones. Yeah.
Were those from the area, or did they have to be shipped in?
These were from the area.
Okay.
But we're going to get to stuff that isn't from the area very soon.
Okay.
So what he ended up doing, he pulled up the flagstones expecting to see something important, like, I don't know, a treasure chest or a bunch of liquor or something right underneath it. He just finds a whole bunch of soil. He digs down a little bit, doesn't find anything. What he ends up doing is recruiting 2 of his friends. So he leaves, he gets his 2 buddies, and they come back. They dig a little bit further, and they manage to dig down, and it's him and 2 buddies now. They manage to dig down 10 feet. When they get to 10 feet, they find a flat layer of logs, just all lying there. It appears to be unnatural because the way they're laid, they're just perfectly parallel with each other sitting there. They pull up the logs, expecting to see something very important just below the logs, like a treasure chest or whatever. Don't find anything. It's just a bunch of soil. And already they're literally and figuratively in over their heads because they're now, I guess, like 13 or 14 feet underground. So the guys are convinced that there's something under there. They just figure it's going to take more effort and more time to get to it. So they get out of the hole, they backfill it all, and basically they leave and don't return for about 2 or 3 years later. What they ended up doing is they formed a company and got a few investors to get some money in on it. And what they did then with the money was they hired a few people, brought a bit of equipment, and went back and dug further. And so I'll start speeding up to the timeline now. And basically what they ended up doing is as they began their dig, they got back to where they were. When they dig to the 20-foot level, they found another layer of logs. When they got to the 30-foot level, there's another layer of logs. When they get to the 40-foot level, there's another layer of logs. And at this point, the whole pit is dry. Yeah.
It's all dirt, so they're not open areas. It's actually dirt between the 10 feet.
Exactly. It's just a layer of logs, and when they're pulling them up, every time they're thinking, like, we're at whatever's been hidden or buried down here. But every time there's just more dirt behind it, and they dig down until they hit to the next set of logs. So where it really starts to get weird is that just after the 40-foot level, so like the fourth set of the third series of logs, now what they're finding is the logs are surrounding the logs is like a hard packed clay that just seemed unusual compared to the rest of the soil there. When they get a bit further, what they end up finding further down, I think around the 60-foot level, is not only is the logs covered in this packed clay, but it's also they're finding layers of coconut fibers. And anyone who, if you think of the reputation that Eastern Canada has, we don't have coconuts down here. So that appears to be, that's hinting to them that this is a man-made and not a natural thing, and that for whatever reason, whoever did this, they brought a whole bunch of coconut fiber. And that's something that comes up in the Oak Island story, is there's coconut fiber all over this island, appearing to be used for something related to whatever's buried down here. So
is it a square hole?
Yeah, the initial pit, this area that I'm describing is called the Money Pit, and it was a square hole that these fellas were digging. But there's since then there's been a whole lot of holes, because what ended up happening, and here's where the real mystery starts, is when they got to 90 feet down, they found a large flat stone that appeared to have a carving in it of some kind of coded text. Nobody's really been able to determine what this rock or stone says, and the stone has since been lost, so there's no record of it. There is you'll find online and in the TV show and all this stuff you'll see the stone or pictures of it, but it's not the actual stone. It's a recreation, and somebody, after the stone was lost, they from memory drew the symbols that were on the stone, and people have since cracked the code to say I think it was 20 feet below or 40 feet below 2 million pounds are buried, and some people think that's going to be 2 million pounds of gold or something. But the fact of the matter is, the code that people have since decoded is just somebody drawing what they remember from these symbols. So there's a big question mark about it. But anyway, after this stone was found at the 90-foot level, they call it the 90-foot stone, the team at this time that was digging, and this isn't these three guys anymore. At this point, those three guys have given up, and other treasure hunters have picked up after them, and that's something that went on through Oak Island history. Is people will run out of money, give up, and somebody else basically picks up where they left off. But at the 90-foot level, after that stone, people were convinced that now that just beyond the stone and just beyond the logs that lie under the stone, that's certainly where the treasure is. And somebody said to have taken a large iron rod and stuffed it down between the logs to try to pry the logs open, just as the sun was setting. And then they said, let's wait until the morning. We'll come back and pull up the next set of logs, in the morning. So they get out of the pit. But what ended up happening was when they came back the next day, it was pretty much filled to the top with seawater. So what people believe happened is that beyond the 90-foot stone, there was a booby trap, and by sticking the rod down between the logs, that may have set off the booby trap and filled it with water. And some people believe that all of the clay that was surrounding the logs above it was put there as a means of keeping the water out and basically having this thing set up to be watertight. So nobody really knows what was at the bottom. It filled with water, and for years people have tried to get back down there, and they just can't seem to do it no matter what equipment they use. And again, as history went on, companies would run out of money, new people get involved, run out of money, someone else would get involved with a different method. One of the methods that they used was to try to cut off the supply of water from the ocean into the center of the island where this pit was being dug. And what they ended up finding was a series of man-made tunnels, basically, that people have been calling them finger drains or box drains. And it's basically these man-made drains that are built using a certain, basically large stones underground, covered in coconut fiber. And the coconut fiber almost works as a filter, so there's no soil between the stones. This allows the water to run from the ocean under the island towards the pit that they're digging, which they call the money pit. So there's a lot going on there, and there seems to be a ancient, and we say ancient, people believe it, whatever was built on Oak Island or whatever was put there was probably put there around the 17th century, but they don't know for sure. But whoever did it, if there's even anything there, it was a massive engineering project that involved basically digging up the entire island, building stuff, and then rebuilding the entire island.
Okay,
yeah.
But have they ever used a large hoe?
Mm-hmm. There was they used a very large hoe. There was one guy. His last name is Dunfield, but people call him Dumbfield because his method. He took over the island, I think, at around 1950. He was an American, worked in the oil industry, and his method. And again, everyone before him, everybody had their own technique of how they were going to, crack the code and get there. His technique was to bring in the biggest machinery the island's ever seen, which included some massive cranes and just heavy bulldozers and all those, big crazy equipment. And basically what he did was just pretty much raped and pillaged the entire island. He dug deeper than's ever been dug there, changed the landscape of the entire island. In fact, his work on the island was so damaging and extensive that every map and everything all the work that was done before him is almost irrelevant and unusual now and unusable now because the landscape and the geography of the island is so changed by what he did. In fact, the original money pit that I described that they were digging 221 years ago, they don't even know where that is now because he changed the island so much they can't identify it.
Did he find anything? Did he find the booby trap flood tunnels?
Man.
Well, he was said to have found them, and he was said to have destroyed them.
That deserves bonks, man.
Because,
that, what we do on this show, like when people do dumb things like that, we give them bonks. So, bonks to that guy that did that, that's dumb.
Well, he goes down. He's going down in history as Dumbfield, and any Oak Island enthusiasts will roll their eyes when his name comes up because he was so confident that he didn't take any care to organize what he was doing or save any of the things that he was like. He found a lot of artifacts under the ground, but he didn't really save it or catalog it in any way or share it with anybody really, because in his mind he was always just like one more crane scoop away from finding whatever the hell's down there. The only thing really he left behind that's of any value is right now, and if you watch the television show, there's a causeway that leads from the mainland onto the island. That was his work. He had that built as a means to bring the heavy equipment he used onto the island. But now that's the way people get on the island. It used to be by ferry, but he had that causeway built.
So did they record anything that he found, or did he ever share it with anybody?
Throughout history, people have archived a whole lot of stuff. In fact, there's a museum on the island. When you go there, the first stop is the museum, where there's a massive collection of things that have been that have been pulled out of the ground, including the year they were pulled out of the ground and how deep underground these things were found. The things that were found I found the most interesting, having visited there, was a pair of scissors, Spanish scissors. I think they were found, I think it was about 80 feet underground, and the scissors were, they were able to date them in some way. I don't know if they can date metal or something, but I think the scissors were from like the early 1700s. Again, found about 80 feet underground, which just to me seems very deep for something to be. They found a lot of coins deep underground, but some of the most fascinating stuff they found is just links of chain and little shards of metal that were found, some stuff like 160 feet or 180 feet below ground. And to see like just a little link of chain pulled from that deep below ground, and just the amount, if it was a natural process that got it there, the amount of time it would take for it to end up there, to me seems like it's more than 400 or 500 years. Probably would predate the creation of chains and such. In fact, if you go on my my podcast Facebook, which is facebook.com/nighttime podcast, I have in like the photo section, I have a folder of photos related to Oak Island, and I have a whole bunch of photos that I took at the museum and various other places that I've been related to Oak Island. So you can see some of this stuff, but it's not like people who just get into it or are just hearing about it are looking for them to find something that's fantastic, like a religious artifact or something. They've never found anything like that. All they found is just enough to keep the treasure hunters interested and keep people involved. It's just been little things here and there, just enough to be like, well, this seems odd. Like, for example, like a piece of a chain or something. And sorry to interrupt you. What was your question?
No. What happened to the first teenager? Did he stay his whole life, or did he give up on it?
No, he ended up giving up So he was there, did a bit of digging, left for 2 or 3 years, found some investors and started a company and came back. They dug for, I think they had control of the island for about 3 years before they ran out of money and couldn't find any investors. And then they sold out to another company, although they still held, the original guy still held some shares in the company that took up after him. But again, just like the company before, they dug for a while, they ran into problems and sold. And if you look at the timeline of Oak Island, and that's why I kind of avoided getting into it, it's there's different companies, one after another, that would take over the island for 3 years to 5 years and either would run out of money or just some terrible thing would happen. There has been, like if you watch the TV show, they bring it up a lot. There have been several deaths of people working on towards the treasure hunt. So far, there's been 6 fatalities.
And when did those happen?
The first one was in the very early days. It was they had a generator that was powered by gas that was down in the pit as people were digging. I think this was in the 1800s, and I'm just going off the top of my head, so these dates may be wrong. But the generator exploded, and somebody was standing next to it, and they were killed. The next one was somebody fell. I think it was about an 80-foot pit was dug. Somebody fell into the pit and died. One of the
that's
treasure hunters.
10x.
This second death was, I think, was the original money pit.
Oh, was
Nobody
it?
has died, luckily, in 10X, and 10X. I'll explain that in a sec. That's a newer.
I thought somebody
newer pit.
There was a body down there that, but then I remember now they went and looked and actually didn't find one.
Yeah, there's theories of there being bodies that. For one, the guy that fell into the pit that I just described, his body was never recovered. Some people think he may be there. He may still be down in the tunnel system below the island. But the next, there was, I think it was in the late 50s, they call it the Restall tragedy. Restall was the family's last name. He was an American motorcycle stuntman. He would do he'd drive like a motorcycle in a big metal, like a big ball kind of thing. He was like a circus performer.
Oh yeah.
He got interested in the island. Yeah, he got interested in the island, and his wife, and he moved his whole family, his children, and everything. They all moved to the island, and he was a treasure hunter for a period of time. But what ended up happening was him and his son and a few other employees. They were digging a pit, and there's a lot of deep underground. There's toxic gases and all this stuff that can screw you up. He was affected by the gas.
Did you get high off him?
Yeah, I think beyond high. I think unconscious off it. So he fell. He fell.
Okay, I won't go there.
Or he fell from a ladder down to the pit. His son tried to save him, and a worker tried to save his son, and they 3 or 4 of them died all on this day. They were actually the hunters before Dunfield that I told you about. Dunfield took up after them, but that was the worst tragedy.
But if we were to if I was to get Igor to go out there and torture and electrocute someone, wouldn't that count as the next person, and then we could find out the truth?
Yeah, one more must die.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So. How did Dave Blankenship get involved?
Yeah, well, this is a really cool story, and I will just say, since you brought up the whole curse, lots of people that are really into Oak Island or locals, they roll their eyes at that whole 7 must die theory, the curse of Oak Island. That's the show really leans on that, but there's very little evidence of there ever being a curse, and no real reason why anyone would have put a curse on the island or where it will come from. So anyway, Dave Blankenship Dave Blankenship's the son. And his father Dan is the one that built 10X. And can I just interrupt there?
I just want to point out to the audience that they don't realize that these guys are your friends from the show.
I would say friends. These are Dan and Dave Blankenship, acquaintances. Dave Blankenship, he was on my podcast, and Dan Blankenship, I've had the pleasure of meeting probably 4 or 5 times when I visited the island. I have pictures with him and managed to shake his hand, and I'm very proud of that because he's someone I've looked up to since I was a little kid. I've learned about Oak Island, I think, in grade 2 or 3 or something in school here. So I've always looked up to Dan and Dave Blankenship, and I'm very proud to say I met them, and with Dave, proud to say I know him. But anyway, how they got involved is very cool, and I love this story. Dave told it on an episode of my podcast, but what ended up happening was Dave Blankenship, he's the son. He was, I guess, maybe 12 to 14 years old when this started. His dad, Dan Blankenship, he worked in the metal fabrication business. He built stuff out of metal. His dad one day was looking at a copy of the Reader's Digest, and the Reader's Digest happened to have a story about Oak Island. This all happened when they were in Florida. The Blankenships were living in Florida, and he read about Oak Island and just fell in love with the idea of being there and searching for treasure. And also, like every other treasure hunter before him, he thought his ability to work with metal would give him an advantage over other treasure hunters because he thought he could do everything on the cheap, build his own equipment, and do it all his way. He couldn't shake the idea, so he finally said one day to his wife, I'm just going to contact the people working on the island and see if I can, get involved and invest or maybe go down there. So he tried every way to get in touch with them. It was actually the Restalls who were the treasure hunters at the time, the motorcycle stunt rider. So from Florida, Dan Blankenship was trying to get in touch with the Restalls. He couldn't make it happen. So what he did was he hired a lawyer and got his son David Blankenship, who was, again, at the time, I think about 14. He put them both in the car with the plan of just driving from Florida to Oak Island with a briefcase full of money to try to buy some shares or get involved in the search. So they make the drive, and I think it was a 3 or 4 day drive to get to Florida, from Florida to Nova Scotia. Yeah, so they made the drive, just driving all day and all night, pretty much, just stopping to sleep in the car. When they get, and this would have been in the early to mid 60s. When they finally get to Oak Island, they show up and they meet the Restalls and with a briefcase of money, and the Restalls turn them away, basically saying, like, we're not looking for any investors. We're close to finding the treasure. We don't need any money or anybody's help, but we'll give you a tour of the island. So they spent a day on the island with the Restalls, and then with their tails between their legs, got back in the car to make the drive back to Florida. And I think they were about a day and a half away on their way back, and they stopped at a hotel to spend the night. And while they were in the hotel, somebody had called them and said, "Did you hear what happened in Oak Island?" And Dan Blankenship said, like, "No, what happened in Oak Island? We were just there." And that was when they were told about the Restall tragedy. They said, he fell in and they all just died. So the people that had just turned him away 2 days prior were just killed the night before. So he was there the day before they were killed. And I'm sure he felt terrible about the whole thing, but whether or not he did or didn't, what they ended up doing was getting back in their car and turning around to go back towards Oak Island with the plan of finding out who's going to own that part of the island now that the Restalls are dead, and try to make a deal with them. So he ended up doing it. He got back there and ended up working out something, and his lawyer was there, as I mentioned, and they ended up buying along with Dunfield, controlling shares of the island and the ability to search for treasure there. So initially, Dunfield and the Blankenships were involved and had a company together. Dunfield did his crazy search where he was just digging the whole thing up and turning it all upside down. After, I think, about a year and a half, he gave up because he spent a fortune. And that was when Dan and Dave Blankenship took over. They've been living there ever since, and up until the point that the TV show starts, which is 4 or 5 years ago, the Blankenships have been the one controlling the island. Of all the work they've done, what's most well known is 10X, which is a separate pit that Dan Blankenship and Dave Blankenship and a few of their friends built. And I'll tell you the story of this too, because this is also a crazy story. And when you hear the story or you see it on TV, it sounds unreal, but being someone who's been there and touched it and looked down it, like, what they did is absolutely unimaginable. And the fact that nobody died doing this, and the fact that these guys are alive to tell their story, to me is absolutely insane. Because what they did is Dan Blankenship believed in this thing called dowsing, and that's basically when you take 2 sticks and you just hold them out, one in each hand, and you just hold them out. And as you walk, the idea is if there's a void under the ground, be it water or oil, the sticks will react in some way. Good use of sound effects. So back in the day when people would search for oil, like the old oil prospectors, they would use this dowsing technique to try to find oil. Dan Blankenship believed in it. He wanted to find voids under the ground, thinking that the void would be full of gold or treasure chests or whatever. He ended up finding an area through his dowsing, and he sunk a drill. I think he put the drill down like 180 feet or something like that. And as the drill's digging, it's pulling up debris from way down low in the ground. And he ended up finding things that made him believe there was something down there. He found he pulled up shards of metal from buried deep below, and also there was signs of there being large cavities. So he thought. And he found pieces of wood as well, that he just thought there was something down there. He wanted to get there, so what he did was he had the initial hole drilled. He now used a bigger drill to make it a bit wider, and he lined it with lead. He made it a little bit bigger, and because his ultimate plan was to get down there. Finally, what he did was he had, I think it was about 22 inches, like pretty much just big enough to squeeze in. So he had like 180-foot deep hole that was about 22 inches wide, just wide enough for him to get in. And what he was doing was he was getting his son David to lower him down with a rope. So they had like a machine set up to hoist the father down, and the dad was going down there to try to figure out what was going on down there. But anyway, he was down there one day. I think he was at about the 60-foot level, and he describes this on my show. But the pipe that he was in started to buckle. He could while he was down there, he could hear it creaking and slowly caving in. So he yelled to his son, like, pull me out, pull me out. And his son managed to pull him out pretty much as the whole thing was collapsing behind his dad. So it sounds like something out of a movie. But anyway, the son got the dad, Dan Blankenship, out of there alive. And now this is what I find so cool, is he didn't give up. He wanted to get back down, but he realized that it wasn't stable. So he needed some way to widen. Yeah, he needed something more stable. He needed to make it bigger, and he needed to reinforce it. So what he did, and again, he didn't have much money, but he knew how to work with metal, which is why he was so confident anyway. So what he did was he found a nearby town selling.
Did he play heavy metal too?
No, but these guys didn't need to. They were bad
just
dudes.
like wicked metalheads that didn't play heavy. Did they listen to heavy metal like Ozzy and shit back then?
No, I would picture, having met Dan Blankenship, I picture him listening to like some guy with like straw in his mouth picking on a banjo. I think he's that type of dude.
Yeehaw! Well, I listen to that too. Yeehaw! Everybody dance. Get
Good
up.
work.
Come on. Don't you know? Let her go. All right.
So he made these bigger metal round tubes.
Yes.
How did he drill them in there?
They had massive drills like a borehole. I don't know what the equipment's called, but a borehole is basically that is just like a big hole in a pipe. Like they build a hole in the pipe as the hole's getting dug, the pipe's getting laid as they do it. It's like when you drill a well, that's the same kind of equipment. I don't know what it's called, but what they ended up.
My brother is he works in the oil fields, and he's the one that actually supplies all the tools. So they bring out like the pipes, and they bring out the drills, and like you said, they drill at the same time they're laying the pipe in. So it's the drill is kind of lines the pipe as they go.
Yeah, I don't know what this stuff is called, but what they ended up doing to widen it is they ended up finding a local business that was involved in moving, I think, water and oil around. They were selling old train cars that were used for holding oil. So it's like you would have seen them. They're just the big cylindrical train cars. They ended up buying 3 of them, and what he did was he where the 10X was dug, he had the train car vertical, so the butt end of the train car is against the hole and standing up straight. And what they did was they kind of dug around it, and just the weight of the train car as they dug it slowly was sinking. And they had a hole cut in the bottom of it, so they were inside the train car pulling the dirt out from underneath it and digging around it and just letting the weight of the train car pull itself down into the ground. Once it got down,
bazinga,
All right, that's enough. You know what? that means that we probably should take a short musical interlude break.
Let's do it.
All right, because you probably need to wet your whistle, get some more screech or whatever you drink over there, and
let's not forget where we left off.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Yeah, and then we're gonna dig deeper into Oak Island, way deeper. We're gonna I'm gonna play a little bit of maritime sort of Celtic music. How's that sound?
Sounds awesome.
All right. This is the Wolfman, and dig some of this. All right, yeah. If it's gonna work, baby, yeah. Gotta get it going, get this strange music going. All right, yeah. From the Wolfman, some Mike Oldfield.
Right. We're not coming to the podcast, are we?
game.
No!
Well, okay. You pick a toy.
I want log! Boy, oh boy!
Yes, log. All kids love log.
What rolls fast stairs, the motor and pairs, rolls over your neighbor's dog. What's great for a snack and fits on your back? It's log, log, log. It's log, log. It's big, it's heavy, it's wood. It's log, log. It's better than that, it's good. Everyone wants a log. You're gonna love it, log. Come on and get your log. Everyone needs a log.
Log from Blammo.
Oh, yeah. And that was a word from our sponsor. Yeah. Everyone buy a log. There's logs under the ground on Oak Island, so I threw that in there.
There's never a reason not to include that.
I know.
Did they find any of those logs?
Well,
Sure,
they're
enough of them.
all the early, like the original stuff, the original money pit, that's all long lost. In fact, there's no concrete evidence really of any of that early stuff. They can't for sure say where it even is. Although the new season of the television show Oak Island, they're claiming that they're going to find the original pit and dig there. They have a pretty good idea. Like when you go to visit the island, there's like kind of just this flattened area where it's like this is the money pit site, but nobody knows exactly where in that area it is.
Is that kind of by Smith's Cove? I'm looking at the map here, and
Yeah, Smith's
trying to get an
Cove
idea.
is. Yeah, if you're looking at Smith's Cove, that is believed to be a man-made beach. That they don't believe that to be natural. And that is where the majority of the finger drains come from. So there's been a lot of work done at Smith's Cove, digging it up, looking for these box drains. It's a lot of coconut fiber there. I have on my Facebook a lot of like clear photos of that area, but you can see it just on the map. From Smith's Cove, you would walk in about maybe a 5-minute walk, if that, and that's where the money pit area is. So it's a pretty good distance that these drains take up. And 10X is kind of in the middle between Smith's Cove and the Money Pit. So it's all kind of in that area around Smith's Cove where this is all going on. You'll also see the swamp. If you're looking at the map, there's another area that's very near the Money Pit. We just, on the TV show or the people into it, they just call it the swamp. But it's thought to be man-made. It's almost a perfect triangle if looked at from above. So on a map, it's clear as day. There's just a triangle swamp. And when you stand there, you can even see that it's a triangle. It's just a kind of an odd place. I'm not going to say it's man-made, but it's definitely unlike any swamp I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's very clear. I'm looking at the aerial, map here on Google Maps, and it's, it really sticks out. Here's this triangle, and then they have, that in itself seems like kind of like maybe that was the pit at some point. Because it's
well, didn't they build a dam there
digging.
too?
Yeah, well, there's actually a few different. There's been a lot of dams built because so many people doing the treasure hunting. They're trying to prevent the water from getting from the ocean into whatever pit they're digging. Since it's a small island surrounded by water, like most islands are. When you dig down far enough, water starts getting in. So many people and prior treasure hunters, they'll build dams to keep water away from the pits that they're digging. So there's been dams built all over the place there. And the swamp has been drained countless times to look underneath it, and people have found cool stuff, but nothing, that takes it too far.
What have they found in the swamp?
They have found unusual logs. For one, they found, this maybe the last 10 years, they found a large tree stump, a massive tree stump that I think was 300 or 400 years old down below the swamp. But what is interesting about that is that the type of tree it was doesn't grow in water, like it wouldn't grow in a swamp. So the idea is this tree must have been there before the swamp was there. Thus, somebody must have built the swamp sometime between this tree being cut down in present day where the swamp is there. Because so many people believe this to be all a man-made thing that was done sometime around the 16th, 17th century. So when they're looking for artifacts, they're always looking for anything over 221 years old, because if you find a piece of metal underground on Oak Island, it's likely to be something left by a prior treasure hunter, like an old chain or an old piece of a tool or something. But if that piece of metal is 222 years old, then it was left there before all this started, so it's considered to be original. But a lot of what they're looking for is around 16th and 17th century, because they're finding a lot of coins, and they found those scissors that I mentioned, and they found an old shoe underground, all from around that area. So they're thinking whoever was on Oak Island around that time had no good reason to be there. So maybe they're the ones that did all this.
Was the shoe still usable?
Yeah, and something interesting about the shoe is it was very big. I've seen the shoe. I have photos of it on my Facebook. It's in the museum there. I think it was a size 14 shoe. It was a really, really big shoe.
Maybe it was Bigfoot that was there.
Yeah, so it just doesn't make sense. It's just odd that you find one shoe on this island, and the shoe's 400 years old, and it's a size 14. It's just, what are the chances that it would be that big of a shoe? But yeah, it was just a leather, handmade shoe from way back in the day.
Wow.
It's huge.
Dan Blankenship found old metal, didn't he?
Oh yeah, Dan Blankenship found all kinds of things. A lot of stuff he pulled out of 10X, but Dan Blankenship's been there since the 60s, searching nonstop. It's his full-time thing. He searched day and night. He still lives on the island now, and he's found a lot of stuff. In fact, when you go to the museum, the majority of what's in there is stuff that Dan Blankenship managed to pull out of the ground, although there's some stuff there from prior to him. But he's really the first. The Blankenships are really the first treasure hunters that really valued archiving it and keeping track of what they were doing and sharing their discoveries with everybody else. And that's kind of the spirit of the museum when you go there, is they're showcasing everything they did, where everybody before them, they had journals and they kept notes and stuff, but they weren't, taking photographs and accurate measurements for the purposes of sharing it with other people. And that's what
makes the gold.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's everybody else just wanted the gold, and everybody else was so confident that they were the ones to do it. Dan Blankenship's also been confident he'd be the one to do it, but he's just a lot more interested in sharing it with everybody else for whatever reason. He's when you meet him, you see why. He's a very nice, sociable guy. Even now, I think he's in his 90s, but every time I've been to the island, he's just been sitting in the museum, which is, as soon as you arrive on the island, you're at the museum. It's kind of like a museum with a gift shop and a little canteen area, and he's just sitting there drinking pop and just with a smile on his face, talking to anybody who will talk to him. He absolutely loves it. So I think he's sharing it because I think he loves the mystery and just wants to share it with other people that are interested in it.
Maybe we should go back to 10X with the train cars.
Yeah. So anyway, what he did, what Dan Blankenship and his son and a few other of their friends did, is they had the train cars vertical, letting the weight of the train cars pull itself into the ground. He pile another one up on top of it. The two of them would slide down a bit more as they're digging. And what they ended up doing to support 10X, this pit they were digging, that they were convinced that something important was at the bottom of, they managed to get 3 train cars, all one on top of the other, vertical under the ground. And then they went down in the train cars and welded supporting skeleton kind of within it. And that's still there today. You see pictures all the time of 10X on the television show The Curse of Oak Island. They sent divers down 10X last year. So 10X is a big deal. At the bottom of the 3 train cars, the original structure's still there. The portion that didn't collapse, they managed to reinforce it with concrete. And even below that, it eventually gets to the bedrock, like the rock that exists naturally under the ground that has been drilled out. And under the bedrock is a cavity or a void. Dan Blankenship back in the 70s managed to get down into that void, which is, I think, about 180 feet deep before you end up in the void. He, on his own, dove down there 2 or 3 times, and he took a camcorder with him. in the video that everybody sees when they watch the TV show, it's this old grainy black and white footage where he believes he filmed a treasure chest and a skeleton and some old tools and a treasure chest, if I didn't already say that. But a lot of the television show has been them trying to get back down there with professional divers and real equipment to try to find out, what's actually down there. And last year they did get a diver down there. He couldn't film because it was so dark and murky, but he felt his way around, and he believed, this diver, that it was a natural cavity, and that what Dan Blankenship believed to be a treasure chest was actually just a large rock sitting down there. But nobody's really convinced, and this season of the television show, it looks like they're going to continue to look into 10X.
So, has there been any findings that they didn't mention on the TV show that you may know about?
I wish. No. And in fact, even what's gone on or what will happen on this television show, although I have friends on the show, I'm not privy to what actually will go on. So I'm watching it with fresh eyes, just like everybody else. And as far as discoveries, my opinion is, as far as what's on there, what's going on Oak Island, I have no idea. But my opinion about the whole thing is it's about the journey as opposed to the destination. I don't believe they're about to find these treasure chests that are deep below the ground. But I just enjoy, and the reason I'm so into Oak Island is I just enjoy all the weird little things that are going on there, and all the different theories of what could be going on. And I just enjoy kind of the game of trying to put this puzzle together.
Yeah, but who would go through the trouble of setting up that elaborate the hole and with water trap coming in and the logs underneath the ground? Like, that's not natural. You don't get logs buried down under the ground like that, and then flagstone and other stuff, and then coconut fibers.
It's bizarre,
and then. And do all that work, and then there's nothing there. I gotta say, there's gotta be something there. Too.
Yeah, that's one theory. But another theory is, and here's the skeptical theory. Not that I believe this, but I'll just to play devil's advocate. I did an episode of my show where I had the episode was called "A Skeptical Look at Oak Island and Bell Island." And my guest on the show was Brian Dunning, who's a I guess we'll call him a scientist / researcher. He has a popular show called Skeptoid. And what his opinion is that
Amy would like him.
Throughout history, people were trying to inflate the value of the company that they had to sell off to somebody else. So, and I guess this is something that is done in like oil prospecting and mining. They call it salting the mine. And that's basically to do something to make it look like you're close to the answer, to inflate the value so you could sell it to somebody else. His opinion was a lot of people in the early days were creating these discoveries just for the purpose of inflating the value and selling it off. I don't know if that's true, but I do find it odd that of all these prior discoveries, there's no evidence of it aside from, again, journals and stuff. But I guess it happened so long ago that it makes sense that there's not photos.
Okay. What about the sword that was? I know we have limited time. You wouldn't believe how fast 3 hours goes. So I want to jump into the sword. Do you know anything about the sword that was recovered off the shore?
Yeah, well, I know it's a bunch of BS.
Okay.
In the sword, like for people who are into Oak Island, we don't like talking about the sword, but basically, just because it gives Oak Island a bit of not a bad name, but it just.
Disinformation.
The sword blew up in the media, and it really had nothing to do with Oak Island. It's all specific to one person who's won't even say his name. He's somebody who was on the television show early on, and he's said to have had a falling out with the producers and the people involved in the show, and he wasn't involved in the show anymore.
Okay, bonk.
But he's still very much involved online in talking about Oak Island and, just being involved in it. He he's involved in this sword, but basically this a sword turned up. It was said to have been found in the waters of the Mahone Bay, and I think it was said to be Spanish or Greek, or I think Greek, the
Roman.
sword. Anyway, what ended up happening
I heard
was a
Roman.
press release.
And then I heard later that it was a replica, and these are very easily found online. It's a Roman sword replica.
You can buy them on eBay.
Yeah.
So anyway, what ended up happening, and this is before the TV show got involved in this, is this guy, he found this sword supposedly in the area of Oak Island. He sent a press release to all these different media outlets saying, like, massive discovery at Oak Island. There's this sword. So the media started reporting on it. And it just blew up. It was all over Facebook and Twitter and this and that, and different people were talking about it. But then what ended up happening was the TV show starts airing, and the TV show, like, one of the episodes covered it, and in the episode that covered it, the sword was presented to the people on the show, and they're looking at it, and it tells the story of how the sword was found. And then they, at the end of the episode, are like, we're going to look into this sword and see what's going on. That episode ends, and then this whole thing blows up in the media, where it's on Facebook and in the media, it was made. If you didn't watch the show and you just read the articles, you would think that the people in the TV show were telling people that this sword is, very important and it's going to change Oak Island forever. So it blew up. But then what ended up happening is on the next episode of the show, they deem it to be a replica that was found on eBay, but nobody reported that in the news or anything. So it created this big black eye around Oak Island, where if you didn't follow the story as it all played out, you would think that the people on the TV show tried to pass this sword off as being legit, but they didn't at all. They ruled it out. It's just it blew up in the media much quicker than they released one episode a week, so it all blew up before their next episode came out where they debunk it. So just kind of sucks. But what's interesting about the person who's said to be behind this sword and this whole charade is I have a friend who works for a local newspaper. In this newspaper, they don't really cover I don't know what you'd call them, but they're kind of like a gossip magazine. So like if a politician's having an affair, this is the newspaper that's going to cover it. Or if a local doctor, does something crazy, this newspaper will be the one that'll break it. And they're always getting sued for writing crazy stories and slander and all that kind of stuff. So it's a really racy paper. But this guy from the States who was involved in the sword, he was trying to engage the local media around Oak Island, where I live is near there in Halifax. So what he was doing was he was calling this newspaper, which again would never report on like Oak Island. They're reporting on affairs and such. But he kept calling the studio trying to get in touch with my friend who's a writer at this newspaper. But my friend had recorded the whole thing, and this guy's calling, pretty much demanding this guy interview him. And the guy keeps hanging up on him. But anyway, it ended up getting released online, and you can hear the whole thing where it's this guy just calling the newspaper over and over again, trying to get them to interview him, and they're telling him that they're not interested in hearing about it, and it's not something they plan to cover. But he used that as proof that this guy who brought the sword up, he believed that the media not being interested in talking to him is proof that the media is trying to ignore the fact that the sword is a replica. And in I don't know, it's just it's all a bunch of craziness. I don't like that sword.
Yeah.
So I think I talked about what I didn't want to talk about for 5 minutes.
Yeah. Let's go on to go ahead, Darren.
I was going to ask him, so after he got to 10X, Dan, did he run out of money? I mean, there's a long period of time there where he didn't do much.
Yeah, well, Dan Blankenship, it was him and two other partners. There's Fred Nolan, and if you watch the TV show, you would have seen him. He was a land surveyor, and a lot of the work he did on the island was above ground. He was looking at where rocks are, where depressions on the island are, and looking for a grander puzzle on the surface within the stones and just the geography on the land. His great discovery is what's called Nolan's Cross, which is basically named after him. His name was Fred Nolan. He
Is that
found,
the other older gentleman?
Yep, and he
he-
actually just passed away.
Oh.
I don't think
I was
they've
wondering
announced
why
it.
he wasn't on the new episode, because he said he wanted to make friends, last year. 'Cause he's getting too old.
Yeah, he passed away while the show wasn't running. I'm sure an upcoming episode will talk about that, I would imagine. He's well in his 90s, but his great discovery was Nolan's Cross, which is a couple large stones that are kind of cone-shaped and just unusual for the island that seem to create a large Christian cross over the island. And that's kind of his great discovery on the island is this cross. But what ended up happening was Dan Blankenship, who was doing a lot of the digging, Fred Nolan, who was looking on the ground, and another guy who was an investor, they had a falling out, I think in the 80s. And they had so many disagreements that they just pretty much stopped working together. The company and what they were doing together fell apart, and they all started kind of their own separate work on the island. Dan Blankenship stuck just with 10X in the surrounding area. Fred Nolan had his property and wouldn't let anyone on his property, so he was doing his own work, and that really slowed things down and eventually led to them losing steam such that their discoveries really stopped. And in the 90s, there was barely anything going on. Dan Blankenship at that point, as well as Fred Nolan, were entering their mid to late 70s, and they started to look to sell. Dan Blankenship started to look to sell. And when Dan Blankenship sold his shares, it was to the people who now do the TV show, the Laginas.
Right. They have a big business, don't they? They have a lot of money, or at least one of them does.
They do. One of them does. The younger brother, Marty, he owns. I think he's from Michigan. The both of them. I think he owns an electricity company or electrical company. So they do have a lot of money, but since they've been kids, they've been very into Oak Island, very passionate about it. They don't need the money this TV show is getting them. Those guys are there because they want to be there, and when you meet them, like I've met them both a number of times, it's just like trying to think of a good analogy. I was going to use a hockey analogy, but a lot of your listeners are probably from the States. But when you're talking to them, it's like you're talking to a kid in a candy store. You can see it in their eyes. They're passionate about it. They want to talk to you. You can tell it's all they think about. So people accuse them of trying to build up hype just to have a successful TV show, not realizing that these guys are already rich and they don't need this TV show. This is something they want to do. And it's obvious when you meet them.
That's the feeling I have, watching the
absolutely.
show.
And same thing with Dan Blankenship. When you meet him, he's a close to 90-year-old man who, when you start, he's sitting in the chair just like any 90-year-old, and he's just, he looks like he has no energy, and he looks he's about to close his eyes and fall asleep. But when you go over and bring up 10X, he sits up in his chair and his eyes open, and he just starts going, like just starts talking about it. Like he's these people. There's something about the people who get into Oak Island. Not everybody's into it, but the people who are into it are so passionate about it. You only have to go on Facebook and go to the different Oak Island groups, because there's groups of people just theorizing and strategizing and discussing it, and they're
I've got a great question.
They're very into it. Go ahead with your question.
I got a great question. I want to know about some of the stone tablets that were found and the glyphs and what type of language possibly was. And I know there was one found on the beach with I think it was Viking,
a big G for the hell are they called?
Almost like like could be the Knights Templar.
Yeah, there's lots of theories that there could be Knights Templar involvement. Although I haven't seen anything that really.
What about Polynesians? Could it have been the Polynesians?
It could have been anybody. There's so many theories that all. Because
it could go way back to when they started mining copper in North America. I think it was the Polynesians and maybe the Phoenicians, or the yeah, even Egyptians, like, where did they get all their copper from? Well, they found big mines where copper's been mined out millions and thousands of years ago in North America that had went to other countries all over the world. So,
and there's the type of clay that's common in Oak Island. I think they just call it blue clay. I think in Egypt that was very valuable. They used it to get blue pigment for paint.
Yeah, I heard about that too.
Blue was a very important color there because
so
it was
they would have had
expensive.
to come to North America way back then in order to get this stuff.
Yeah.
Could it have been a mine for the blue pigment?
It could have been,
clay?
yeah. It could have been, and
yeah, they actually did. I read something on that. They actually that clay that you're talking about, I believe, is present on Oak Island. Is it not?
It's beyond present. It's common. It's
oh
all
wow,
over the
yeah,
place.
that's what I thought. So this could have been a place, and it's great for stopping by on a journey down further south if you're traveling across the Atlantic.
If you look at Oak Island from above, it wouldn't be hard to get to from the ocean. It would be. It's not like you got to go, too out of the way into harbors and stuff. It's just right there.
Okay,
so
yeah, wait a minute.
You never
Could a sparrow carry a coconut across the Atlantic, and what type of sparrow would it be?
That's a swallow.
Oh no! No, you're wrong answer. Nope. Sorry. It's an African swallow.
African swallow.
There has been Egyptian hieroglyphs found in and around this part of Nova Scotia. That said, the hieroglyphs that are found are rumored to be much newer than what the ancient Egyptians would have carved. So,
what about the other 200 islands that you said were there? Do they all have the same clay, or is Oak Island unusual?
Oak Island is unusual in that it has a lot more of the clay than the other islands. Other spots have it, but Oak Island seems to be full of it.
Was there any Minoan writing ever found?
No, I don't know what that is.
No, Minoan, like from an island off Greece, because they would have had to have. I don't know. One of the. I got this out of the chat room.
Okay, yeah, no, I've never heard of that. But I have heard of something called pine tar mines, and these were. I don't know if I would say common, but this was something that happened a lot in Atlantic Canada back in the day. And what it was they would pile pine trees up, they'd light them on fire, and then they would dig down underneath the ashes of the pine trees and find pine tar. Because I guess as the trees were burning, this tar would sink into the ground. Then what they would do is they'd pile more trees, light it up, dig down to get the tar, and it was very messy and damaging. So it was usually done on an island near the shore, and it would be done on the same spot over and over again. And there is a theory that this is an ancient pine tar mine site, in that what they're finding is old artifacts left behind by people who were working in the pine tar operation. Although that, of course, it hasn't been proven. That's one of 25,000 million theories there must be. But
why
that's
the
one
coconut
of them.
fibers, though? That wouldn't make sense with the coconut fibers.
Well, no, it wouldn't. But coconut fibers in this part of the world, our history going back is lots of trade with boats. We're right on the water, of course, right on the ocean. So there's lots of boats coming and going, and I believe a lot of things back in the day, as they were shipping liquor or whatever, it would be packed with. They would use the coconut fibers for like the way we would now use styrofoam popcorn and stuff. And one theory is that the site of where Oak Island is, or where this money pit and Smith's Cove and all that, once upon a time was a repair shop kind of thing for boats, and that there was a lot more boats coming and going. And they think that's the reason why there's Spanish coins and coconut fibers and weird pieces of wood underground that just seem out of place. But Just one of the other theories.
I think it's still there in the money pit, whatever they're going to find. I think that guy in the 50s, that dumb guy, whatever his name was.
Dunfield.
I think he just messed it all up and just couldn't. I bet he didn't find it. I bet he moved it around. I bet it's still there. I bet there's stuff still there.
Well, I'll tell you.
I can't believe we haven't had a caller yet. Doesn't anyone out there have a question for Jordan? Come on, you people, grow some testicles.
Coconut.
Yeah,
Coconuts.
coconuts. Grow some coconuts and call in, please. Come on, people.
Yeah, I see I'm looking at the chat now, so maybe it was one of you. The Roman sword is there, and that's one of the Lagina brothers holding his hand up next to it to get an indication of its size.
What? Did you see the new episode?
Oh my God, yeah. The girl they go to. You watched, I'm assuming. They go to the castle in New Ross, and they meet the girl who owns that property.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking? Yeah, she's a good friend of mine, and she, oddly enough, and this is going to make Nova Scotia sound like a small place or something. I had no idea she was going to be on this season, but she was recently on my podcast telling a story completely unrelated to Oak Island or her property. So I had met her through my podcast. She was on sharing a story of a house she lived in a few years ago that was rumored to be haunted. So we talked about that, and then when I turned on the show the other day. She's on it. I'm just like, what the hell? But I emailed her and stuff afterwards, and I'm going to go see that property this summer. I knew she had bought it, and I knew there was rumors of Templar involvement in the well on her property, but I had never heard the whole story. But it's just kind of crazy the way that happened. That
and the other hatch that they found, and that other map, and the other writing, that was fascinating.
Yeah, that's it. We'll see what comes of it. It's very cool. And this season, some things I do know about this season is that they're going to look into quite a few things, but really try to sort out from the history of, like I told you, the super condensed version of Oak Island's history. A lot of, I believe what's going to happen this year is they're going to try to go through a lot of that stuff and see what can be proven to be true and what can't, and try to find the true story of what happened there. And I do know that a lot of work is being done on the site rumored to be the Money Pit. When I was on the island last, there was massive cranes and massive pipes in the ground. You can find pictures of it online because people, like, the cranes were so big you could see them from the mainland. So what people were doing was going around the island in a boat and taking pictures of it. And when that wasn't good enough, they sent drones over. Like, somebody flew a drone over taking pictures to see what the guys filming the show were doing. And you can see photos of the Money Pit site in a very, very massive operation and a massive dig there. So something big's going to happen on the Money Pit area during this season. I know that for sure.
I hope they find a bunch of stuff in the dirt. I hope they find the logs. That'd be so cool. And I hope they go in that hatch. That hatch thing looks amazing.
Yeah, well, we'll see what it is. And that came out of nowhere. Nobody's ever heard of that until this season. They just basically what had happened was a weird somebody had bought an old book, and there was a map in the fold in the back cover, I guess, of Oak Island, and it had a few sites on there. I don't remember. I think it was in French. One of the sites was called the Hatch, and when they went looking where the hatch was on the map, which ended up being right next to Dave Blankenship's property, Dave Blankenship remembered an anomaly near his property line, and that was right where the hatch was. And it's just kind of like a dugout hole that's square and like kind of brick looking. It looks almost like a fireplace going into the ground or something. So we'll see what
deep.
That is.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
I'm curious, but any new discovery on the island is very cool.
And it seems like every time they dig, they find something.
Yeah, and they're always looking. When I was there, if you watch the TV show, one of the guys in the show is Jack Begley. He's the young guy from the States who's assisting them. When I was there last, we were driving around on golf carts because there's trails there, like the pathways and stuff and the roads on the island. We were going through on golf carts, and I just like saw and it's kind of sundown, so it's getting dark, and I just like saw somebody in the woods. And there's not people on Oak Island, like there's people live there, but you don't see people like walking around and stuff. And I just saw some in the woods, and we like slowed down and be like, who is that? And then just out of like the thick woods, and it was a wet day, so he's all muddy and crazy looking. It was Jack Begley, and what he was doing is he was just pretty much like, I think what he did was he set up a grid, and he was trying to walk across every bit of the island. So he was just trucking through the bushes and and all that, not on his hands and knees, but pretty close to it, just looking for anything interesting. And I had asked him, like, how often are you just looking through the woods here? And he said, sorry, did I lose you?
Nope, we're here.
Okay, good.
I'm waiting for Jeff to ask you a question, and then we're gonna go for a musical break, unless you want it right now. I know probably.
Do you want your question, Jeff?
I was just I was real curious about because you said there's a lot of like little finger type of drains.
Yeah, they call them
going
finger
into
drains.
it.
Yeah.
Is there like was there like any major like tunnels, or is just like a bunch of little drains to prevent people from digging in and keep filling up?
Yeah, well, there's a bunch of little drains, and what people think the drains are for is to bring water from the ocean into the island to flood these tunnels. And there are tunnels deep below the ground. In fact, on the last season of the television show, the diver went down below 10x into the bedrock where there are natural tunnels. Some think the tunnels were man-made and carved. Some people think it's just a natural geological thing that happens deep below the ground.
Do you want to know what I think?
What?
I think that they are man-made, and before the Great Flood, I think that they were dry, and that area was all dry, and now like other sunken cities and sunken pyramids around the world, areas like the Bahamas where you have possibly the remains of Atlantis. This is underwater now, and that's why these tunnels are all flooded.
Do you think they were booby traps, Jordan?
Yeah, I do. The box drains, or like these finger drains, they're unusual. I don't know why they would be there. They're also angled so that water is running into the island. But being a homeowner, I know that what I try to do is keep water away from my stuff. So I want all the water to run away from my home. So whoever built anything on that island, you would think that what they'd be trying to do is get the water to go away from the island towards the ocean. So the drain should be angled in the opposite direction, so the water is running down to the island, to the ocean, rather than running from the ocean down towards the center of the island. That doesn't make any sense.
Wait a minute. So they have actually determined the grade of these tunnels. I didn't think that they had determined it, because I was still thinking that when it was dry that they may have been used for drainage.
No, the grade is said to be pointed to descend as it enters the island, if you know what I mean. So water running down.
Yeah, that's strange.
They're
You're right. That is strange.
What do they call them? Underground booby trap flood tunnels.
Exactly.
How the hell would you make something like that? That is incredible.
There are some theories as to how it was made. One of the theories is that it was originally two separate islands, and somebody put everything in the center and filled it in to form one large island rather than two. And the part that was said to be added was where the Triangle Swamp is, as well as Smith's Cove. But that's just a theory.
Huh. Dan
right,
Blankenship
okay.
thinks that
we're gonna
really
Darren.
important. Yes.
We're gonna take a break right now. Okay.
Okay.
We've gone on for quite a while now. I'm sure that our guest needs to wet his whistle, and I know I do. Everybody else, I hope you enjoy this. Beautiful. This is from a suggestion from Moog Boy. I'm going to put on some music from, I think it's Halifax. I know it's from New Brunswick.
The Trailer Park Boys one?
No, I know.
I think that's the one.
I'm going to try this one here.
From Nova Scotia.
This one here. It's
Sons of Maxwell, dig it all right with the Wolfman rock and roll, yeah, baby, oh yeah.
all the messed up sheets on the bed I made. I should run, I'm almost late to go rejoin the parade. But it's like I'm fighting an uphill battle these days. It's like I'm fighting an uphill battle these days. Like I'm fighting an uphill battle these days.
I love that song. Do you love that song?
This is like all the games we can play out on the way. Watching Jerry Lewis call the pledges. I sit and reminisce about the days when I was 17 years old, and as crazy as it seemed, I couldn't wear my new shoes or my back to school jeans until the first day of the school year when all my friends would show up clean and shiny just like me. We would separate the pearls and find that I do mean girls from the ones who we decided looked too much like Golden Girl. Hey, hey, it's gonna happen. No matter what you do or say, so stay your overcomer from the games that people play. Sitting on my perch out at a nightclub, I watch a scene I've seen 1,000 times. There's a hot girl at the bar, serving hope to hopeful men. Oh, the crazy super low price of a vodka I'm watching at when a lovely lady leaves for the evening. She's bragging how she hasn't dropped a dime. That may be luck in one regard, but I think it's so bizarre. She can leave her home without a cent, a bank or credit card. Hey, hey, it's gonna happen. No matter what you do or say, so stay your overcomer from the games that people play. Someone gave me the instructions. I don't know, all the rules seem to change. Every time that I think I've got it figured out, there's a Peter Market always join right in. Hey, hey, it's gonna happen. No matter what you do or say, so stay or remember from the games that people play. From the games that people play. From the games that people play.
Oh yeah! Wolfman Mike gonna dig it, give it to you, baby. Rock and roll, yeah, baby. Ow.
There's some, do you guys feel like you're in the pub down there?
That's a good song, The Games That People Play.
Yeah, I like that
Liked it.
one. Yeah, I like that one. That was a suggestion from Moog Boy in the chat room. The next suggestion has nothing to do with New Brunswick, but we have a request for some Ted Nugent, Wango Tango, up next.
Sweet.
Absolutely nothing to do with the subject, but it is a fun song, and I can't refuse it.
Sounds good.
All right, so where were we now? You know what I want to do? Because we're in the second half of the show now, I want to move on to the Bell Island Boom.
A different island.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
When they drilled down and they found the gold chain and the piece of parchment with writing on it,
Oh, yeah.
is that real?
That's real, yeah. And the parchment was just a tiny little piece of paper, I think with an F on it. But that has led to the theory that what could be buried in there is original Shakespearean manuscripts. And there is some evidence relating Shakespeare's writing to Oak Island. If you look at, I'm not sure what book it is, but there's a certain Shakespeare book. If you take the original print of it, there's odd typos, odd spacing, and odd capitalization. Just some words capitalized for no good reason. And there is a researcher, an Oak Island researcher named Peter Amundsen, and he is the one leading kind of the theory that it's relating to Shakespeare. And he's researched these typos and these errors and this weird spacing, and he's drawn graphs and he's laid it over maps and blah, blah, blah. But he has a pretty good belief and makes a pretty good case for the fact that it's related to Shakespeare in some way. But he actually has a documentary he just released, I think maybe last year. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, but it's he tells his story in the documentary. Let me just Google the name since we're talking about it. Peter Amundsen was on the first season of Oak Island. The documentary is called Shakespeare: The Hidden Truth. He was on the first season of The Curse of Oak Island. He's a well-known researcher. I'm not sure where he's from. He speaks with an accent. He's from somewhere far
Norwegian,
from here.
isn't he?
Yes, he's Norwegian.
Wasn't the first guy that went to South Pole was last name was Amundsen?
Yeah, but he's a very cool
So
guy.
Where'd that parchment go? Is there a picture of it or the gold chain?
Yes, I believe there's a picture of both the gold chain. I don't think it's in the museum. I haven't seen either myself. I've seen photos of the parchment, but I've never seen the actual thing. I have no idea where it is.
I think they went into a little chest. A
very
treasure
well
chest of some. All right, that was my last question.
Okay.
Thanks, Wolfman.
Okay, and if anybody else has questions on Oak Island, you can still call in, even though we're switching topics. Because I do want to talk about the Bell Island Boom. I don't think many of you know anything about it down there in the States.
People in Atlantic Canada don't know about it, oddly enough. People in Bell Island don't know about it.
I've talked to a few people from Bell Island. They don't know anything about it.
Yeah, I was surprised by that. When I was doing a lot of the research on it, I was in touch with a lot of people from Bell Island, and I had a little ad playing on the Bell Island radio station to try to get people who were involved or eyewitnesses to come forward. And I was getting a lot of people rolling their eyes, saying,
"What kind of
hell are you?
What kind of area? What kind of area did it actually affect? How big of an area?"
Well, really, the majority of what happened all happened on one property called the Bickford Farm. So it's really
very centered. That's why.
Yeah, that was kind of ground zero. That's where like the weird stuff really went down. But everybody on the island in the surrounding area heard and felt the blast. But it's again, the Bickford farm is where the rubber met the road in that story.
Okay, so and there was melt, and exactly what I heard about it anyway was a big loud boom, and there was melted telephone wires and hydro wires and unexplained things moving around, and possibly some kind of experimental weapon.
Yeah, well, there's lots of theories, and basically what it was it just sort of as you described, without any warning, a massive explosion in the sky that sounded like people described it as sounding like an earthquake, except coming from the sky right above their heads. People who were there described it as if a lightning blast went off, I guess it'd be thunder. If thunder sounded in the sky, except coming from way above the sky, if it came from the air just around your ears, is what some people said. It was just deafening, almost knock you over type of blast.
Was there people injured or hurt? I thought there was some injuries.
There was a couple chickens killed. They found where the blast actually occurred above where it actually ground zero, the Bickford farm. He was inside his house. He heard the blast, felt the whole house shake, and he ran outside, and he had like a barn for chickens, and the barn was kind of half exploded, and he ran inside there, and his chickens were dead. His son, who is a young boy who I had spoke with as well, he was riding his bike on the street, and the son saw some weird stuff. The son was the one who saw the blast happened in front of his, like just before his son's eyes. A large ball of just bright light appeared in front of him and just kind of hovered there, making a loud sparking sound, or just like. And it just appeared in front of him, and it lasted, he said, like 2 or 3 seconds.
Okay, wait a minute. How far in front of him? Was it like in front of his face, or?
No, I think like 5 to 15 feet. Like he was standing there
large,
looking at it.
What does large mean? Was it like a size of a basketball, or what?
No, the size of... if you built a snowman, do you have snowman in the U.S.? If you do, like it'd be like the ball you would put on the bottom. So it'd be like much bigger than a basketball. I can't even think of it. Like those big exercise balls that you would see at the gym. I don't know if they're used for yoga or something. One of those things.
And if you fill them with
I'm sitting on one right now.
It's about as big as that thing.
He fills his with water, and when he bounces too hard, it goes like this.
That's so funny.
Well, there was I read that with the boom that it was there was so much energy that it actually triggered some of the American nuclear test satellites.
Yeah, the defense, the American defense satellites picked it up, exactly.
Yeah, and a couple like weapons researchers from the Los Alamos National Laboratory showed up because of the explosion. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, as well as Russian scientists. There was Americans from Los Alamos who were studying at the time. Los Alamos is where a lot of experimental weapon testing was done and planning was done. They had sent 2 or 3 scientists, and this isn't rumors. This is confirmed. They're filmed. There's photographs of them from the newspapers and everything. They were there interviewing a lot of people, the Bickfords, as well as interviewing the fire marshal who was at the Bickford farm. They were there and did some work, left. And what was really cool is when they were there, they would interview people, but they wouldn't talk to each other in front of the person. So what they would do is it'd be like if it was me and you interviewing somebody, I would ask the person we were interviewing a question, and they'd answer. And then what they'd do is they'd take out a piece of paper and they'd write a note and show the notes to each other. So they didn't talk to each other in front of people. They both carried little books, and they wrote messages and showed it to each other, and that's how they communicated. So the whole thing is just there's a lot of secrecy and a lot of weird stuff. So the Los Alamos people were there, and then they came back with people from the Canadian military as well as the Russian military, and they all poked around. The people from Los Alamos were said to be working on weapons relating to harnessing a certain type of electrical power that some people believe that it could have been experimental weapons testing gone wrong. People think it could have been cloud seeding gone wrong, because this was at the height of the Cold War when this all went down. So all that freaky stuff with experimental weapons that was all in full swing. This was 1978 when the Belle Island boom occurred. The blast when it did go off, and we mentioned this earlier, but it was so strong that, again, it blew up the little barn and killed the chickens. It left a whole bunch of holes in his front lawn. But what else it did is it fried all the electrical system in his house. Like all his the wires in his walls all had to be replaced. But not only that, but the power lines leading to his house, whatever electrical thing happened, it created so much energy that the rubber insulation that covers the street wires, it just turned to a dust. And they said there's photos of this and you can see it online, but as you walk down the street, there was just like a line of powder underneath all the power lines where the rubber just disintegrated and just fell to the ground as black dust.
Did it not smash the glass out of his house too?
Oh yeah, well it also it smashed glass, caused structural damage. I interviewed the girl who lives in this house right now, lives in the Bickford firm. Are you looking at your soundboard for question ideas?
No. I did.
Yeah, go ahead.
I did nothing. I hear nothing. I see nothing.
Well, I had read that there were before the boom, people said they heard like a high pitched like sound before the explosion, is what I've got from some of the reports that they said.
Yeah, they also, before the explosion, but could taste sulfur in the air. And immediately before the explosion, people saw a dust kind of in the air that had a sulfuric taste and a sulfuric smell. But what was weird is people said the dust wasn't falling to the ground, it was rising. So people said it just kind of got sort of like foggy, but with like an orangey kind of dust that seemed to be rising rather than dropping. There's been a few reports of that, but it's all, I guess speculation for us to say whether or not it actually happened, because it's not like they filmed it or anything like that.
We got a caller.
People have said that.
You're on the Monster Castle Paranormal Radio, sir. Or ma'am?
Hello?
Hello?
Is this me?
Yeah, it's you. This is Wolfman Mike, all right, yeah!
Hey, Jordan.
Hey, buddy, who's this?
This is Alex.
Oh, Alex. This is my
Sorry,
favorite security
I'm by a
guard.
train station. This will go away momentarily, I promise.
It's all right.
Hey, so I was listening to what you were talking about with the Belle Island boom, and I specifically wanted to ask if, along with the sound, there was basically with what you're describing, was there power outages reported?
Oh yeah, like when that went down, the power was out right across Belle Island. Belle Island is a small island off the mainland. The mainland was unaffected. They heard
by the way,
but Belle
what year
Island
was
had
that?
power
What year
after
was
this.
that too? What year was that?
This was 1978.
Okay.
Yeah, because what you're describing is literally exactly all the symptoms of an EMP burst, which actually goes along with any nuclear blast. Any nuclear blast is going to have an EMP burst along with it. And power outages, circuits being fried even past the anti-conductive rubber and shit like that.
Okay, who am I talking to here? Who am I talking to? What's your name?
Alex.
Alex? Male or female Alex?
This is male.
Okay, all right. Because I just want to know so I don't call you hun or something.
No, it happens. Don't worry. And, yeah, you wouldn't want to do
You can
that.
still call him hun. I do all the time.
Okay. Anyways, So wow, you are on the same page as me. I was thinking the same thing. EMP.
Yeah,
And, it was definitely, well, not, I can't say definitely, but I would, if I had to put my money on it, I would say this was an experimental, or something gone wrong. Maybe it could be a like some scientists work in their basements and do shit like this too, eh? And it could be, who knows?
Is with an EMP blast, if you're talking about nuclear experiments, you could have a what's the word for water? Subaquatic.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be nuclear.
Underwater explosion.
You don't
and
have
still
to.
Get the EMP
No.
effects.
Now wait a minute, Alex. You don't have to be nuclear to make an EMP blast. You could
No,
just
you
could just do it with bouncing frequencies off the ionosphere.
Yeah. Not to get in the way of that, another theory that's been put around and that a lot of people think is credible is that it was just a super rare type of ball lightning, and the ball lightning would explain the large glowing ball that the sun saw, because I guess ball lightning is something that can happen, but it's not well known at all. And these people from Los Alamos, what their explanation was for their involvement in the island is they thought it was ball lightning, and they were there to investigate and study the climate to see why ball lightning would appear and be so strong there. But there's been a lot of scientists who said the atmospheric conditions and basically the weather during this period of time when this happened would not be conducive to any type of electrical activity.
No, that's ridiculous. I don't even
lightning.
want to talk about that. That is so stupid. I don't even want to talk about that. It wasn't stupid ball lightning.
Yeah.
Come on.
Come on. I
on.
believe there's something to it. Absolutely, there's something unusual.
I
to
can't.
it.
And by the way, I lost the Skype feed, but it's back on again.
Mm-hmm.
If Alex, was it Alex?
Yeah, did we lose him?
If we lost him. If Alex wants to call back, what happened was my computer that have my second line of Skype on crashed on me during that call. It's like it must be the government. They didn't want us to talk or something, But I'm reestablishing the connection, and we're going to get it back.
Good.
You guys, Darren and Jeff, do you have any questions about this? This is something you probably never heard about before, the Bell Island boom.
No, I've never heard of it at all.
No, it's something new to me. Now, I'm kind of familiar with the Superbolt, which is the the really powerful lightning, but they said there was none of that. I've read there's some reports of people saying there was like a beam of light that they say came out of the sky.
Yeah.
But I mean, was that before or after the explosion? It's kind of hard to...
As the explosion happened. And that's just a few people, or I think just one person in particular, that was what they said they saw. Whether or not it's real or actually happened, who knows? But something definitely happened there because there's physical evidence of it. Atmospheric scientists do not believe it was lightning. That's the official government explanation, though. The Canadian government said it was caused by ball lightning. Take that for what it's worth.
Okay, that's it. The person that said that is definitely getting fucking bonked. That is stupid. Stupid. Think we're all dumb? Okay, that's it. I'm going to bonk you one more time and your head's going to split open.
Yeah, I don't think the government would send all their people. They had Alamos Labs send people there?
Yeah. You can watch the old... there's a few documentaries about it. I linked them on my website. One of them was produced by the CBC, like the Canadian Broadcast Corporation, and these guys from Los Alamos are filmed in it. They weren't interviewed, but they're filmed there. Or maybe they are interviewed just briefly, but you can see them there, and you can see it, the aftermath of it all there, interviews with the scientists and stuff. This documentary was filmed not long after it actually happened. There's newer documentaries. One is hosted by William Shatner. It's terrible.
Well...
They needed Spock. They needed in search of to go up there.
I do have I have a couple of experiences where I can say it's probably not lightning. I used to fly when I was in the Marines, and I within a month time frame, like 3 weeks, the aircraft got struck by lightning twice. And what's unusual is that when you're that close to the lightning, I mean, I'm in the aircraft and they get struck. You don't even there's no sonic boom. There is no sound. It's just a bright flash. That's all it is. No sound involved when you're right there. So, I mean, like I said, that's my personal experience. Twice I survived both of them. But like I said, it's like someone is taking your picture and it's just this bright flash, but there's no sound. So there's no way that could have been any type of lightning of any sort.
Mm.
I wonder if
I
they
agree with
bounce.
you.
I wonder if they bounce
I think that
something off
lightning is go ahead.
off the ionosphere. Like up in Alaska, and it just bounced off and landed there. And they're like, "Uh-oh, we better go figure out what we did."
Oops.
Right. That's quite a possibility. But I mean, I think the lightning or the whatever, not lightning, but it's like the explosion was secondary to whatever happened. But
And what we didn't get through in the conversation was leading up to the Bell Island boom. There was a whole lot of other smaller booms that were reported. In the months, I think for about 6 months leading up to the Bell Island boom, there was massive explosions in the sky, booms, heard all across the eastern seaboard of the U.S. up into Canada. The original idea, like people were complaining to the government and all this stuff, and they were trying to look into what was causing these booms.
All right.
And they believed it was the
I believe
Concorde
we got you back.
jet. Sorry?
I'm sorry. We have the caller back.
Is Alex back in the
Alex
building?
back, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome back.
Woo!
Are you working, Alex?
Actually, I'm waiting for my girlfriend to arrive on the train, and I'm looking around for a liquor store to buy her some booze.
Good call.
Wonderful.
Well,
a classic libertarian, right?
You know what you do? You just
I don't know what a libertarian is, but all your jokes are about politics that go over my head. I tried to make one.
Day.
You have to call back after the after show. In the after show.
I want to hear the jokes.
Oh, yeah?
I want to hear the jokes.
No, it's
What?
I'm kidding.
What joke?
You got a good joke for us?
Shoot. What's harder than pinning dead babies to the wall?
Peeling them off.
Me as I do it.
I don't know who he is.
I was gonna say, I would say peeling them off after like weeks of viewing.
Nope, me as I do it.
Oh, good Lord. What I was saying was the Concorde jet was to blame for all these booms that were occurring in the sky.
How do you stick a baby? Never mind.
The government had moved the flight path of the Concorde jets further out to sea, hoping that would create the sonic booms further out to sea and it wouldn't bother people. But it didn't really make much of a difference, and it all seemed to kind of climax with the Bell Island boom.
The other thing that's interesting about bringing up the Concorde jet, I'm a bit of a plane fanatic, and I actually like that plane. It got a lot of UFO reports on it, too. A lot of people who didn't know what they were saying as far as a civilian plane was going called that one in, too. So it wouldn't be surprising if there's some coincidence between your Bell Island experience and the Concorde flight path.
Yeah.
But don't you think they probably all were drinking a wee bit too much screech out there?
Oh, I'm sure they were drinking too much screech.
They are just a little bit over the edge of them. Don't you think now?
Well, that was one thing that was really fun about researching the Bell Island boom was getting to talk to all the colorful Newfoundlanders. I interviewed Alex. You may have heard it because I released it on one of my Patreon bonus episodes. It was an interview with the current homeowner, Cynthia Bickford, and she is a sweet old lady, but with a very thick Newfoundland accent, and they sound quite comical.
Did she witness it?
Yeah, she was a young girl. She was upstairs in her bedroom when it happened. She ran downstairs and she ran outside with her dad, saw the whole thing, but her dad's long since passed away, and she still lives in the house. And she was telling me the whole story about the house isn't straight anymore. Like if you stand outside and look at it, it's like structurally it's all off, and they can't fix it, but it's okay.
I want to ask the caller a question.
Do it.
What's that?
How do you know this guy?
How do I know? How do I know Jordan?
Yes.
I listened to his podcast. In fact, I started listening around like episode 3, and I've been following him ever since because I knew he had talent and he had potential, and I wanted to keep up with him.
He's got a great voice, don't you think? No.
I think he's got a better one than me.
I'd say Jordan has a very good voice on the radio.
Huh.
I would have to agree with you again. Like I think he has a better voice than I do on the radio.
I don't know. Alex is also a up and coming podcaster, and
I can't
still got to get you on the show soon, Alex.
I can't even imitate you now, Jordan. Usually I can imitate most people's voices, but actually yours is hard to do.
Huh.
I don't.
Well, it's probably because I have a little bit of an Atlantic Canadian accent, but from years of working with, I think we're.
Did you take?
My
you must
develop, like I lost it because I always worked at call centers talking to Americans.
No, you sound like. Sorry, man, you got no accent. You sound like an American.
Oh shit.
Yeah, he can certainly pass sometimes, but he definitely slips sometimes, and you can definitely hear
I think
it.
I've got a
But
worse accent.
He's very understandable for us Americans as well. There's no language barrier that makes his podcast difficult to listen to whatsoever.
I think he's very articulate gentleman, and I really enjoy his voice. And I'm not making fun of him.
No. Do we have links to his podcast on our Facebook page?
Yeah. There will be. Yeah, it'll be
good.
links to his podcast. Will all be all over our webpage for sure.
Yeah, if you get a chance, you definitely need to listen through his podcast. He's got some really good stories in there. I work as a security officer. I walk around at grave shift at night, and I specifically like his podcast because I like being creeped out when there's nobody around.
Trust me, I've listened to them, or I wouldn't have had him on. First, I found him online, and then I listened to some podcasts, and then I saw the Oak Island, and then I wanted to do a show about Oak Island, so that's when I found his Twitter, and then I tweeted to him, and I guess I was beaten to the punch by another fellow. Jim Malyard actually got you on before I did.
Hold on one second, Jordan. I just want you to understand what's happening here. We have in the last minute 3 references at least of 3 different individuals who picked up right away how good of a podcaster you are and wanted to back you up and get you on their shows. There
we go. I won.
Yeah, there you go, man. You got an awesome radio voice, so. Yeah, and then I found out after I got a hold of you that Jim Malyard already had you on his show, so I listened to that show too.
Did you?
Yeah, I did before I had you on. Yeah.
Was that about? I don't remember what I talked to him about. Was it about Oak Island?
Oak Island, Bell Island Boom, and oh yeah, and we got to go into the Shag Harbor.
Oh God. Into the dark waters of Shag Harbor.
Oh yeah, we got to enter the waters of Shag Harbor.
Jordan, did anything happen after 78, or was that the end of it?
That's the end of it, and that's why it's forgotten about. People basically they fixed the damage. He had an electrician in, fixed all that. He got some landscaping done to fill in the big holes in his front lawn, and now it's just a legend. People tell the story, but like I said, when I was trying to find eyewitnesses and stuff, I thought what I could do is just go on Facebook and get a little thing put on the radio there that people would come out of the woodwork willing to tell me their story. But that wasn't the case at all. I had a lot of people saying what is the, people from Bell Island saying, what is the Bell Island Boom? And I had to send them links to the Wikipedia article and stuff to show them that I wasn't crazy.
It almost sounds like that there was some kind of cover up and just shut the people up about it because, but then again, at that time, you would be looked on as a strange person if you talked about things like that.
Yeah, especially in a small fishing
kinda-
community in
and
Newfoundland.
you would want to be known as a crazy person, so you'd shove that under the carpet.
I didn't hear that boom.
Exactly. I didn't see nothing. But then for certain people, it affected their.
There's reports coming out recently of people that remember the boom. There was a guy who lived in Foxtrap, about 12 miles away, and he said that they were getting ready for church, and it was sunny out. It was April 2nd. And then, boom, they hear a sound. And they look out, and the guy looks over. There's no aircraft, nothing else. And then that was it. They thought it was the Concorde, but there was nothing else. That was it. So, I mean, there's people that are actually coming out now and talking about it at this point, now that it's, hit the interwebs.
Yeah, it's just there's not a lot of research being done, and I guess it's probably hard to. But that's what I would like to hear, like somebody do like good research and try to figure it out. And I don't know, I wouldn't even know where to start myself, but that's what I think should happen.
I wonder if there's any radioactivity in the ground.
Well, yeah, we got to go back to the place. We got to do some research there. We got to get some Geico meters. We got to do paranormal research there, like I normally do. I would treat it.
You mentioned
basically, I would treat it as a haunting, and I'd go from there and and I'd bring a medium with me and all the K2 meters and all that shit and some radioactive meters and anything else I could think of, and just start from there, like Scooby-Doo, man.
Yeah, well, just you mentioned looking for something in the ground, but the history of Bell Island. It was a mining operation, and the ground is rich in iron ore, except it's all hollowed out now. In fact, geologists have an issue with people even living there because they say it's just a matter of time before the whole thing caves in on itself because it's so tunneled out below. It's a hollowed out.
Alex, you still there? Alex?
Yeah, I'm still here. I just muted myself for the sake of in case any trains came by. I didn't want to, interrupt your conversation.
What would you do? What would you do?
What would I do?
To find out the research for this Bell Island boom. What could we do?
Personally, I'd drop it and look towards some of the other sounds that are being reported all over the world. If you look on YouTube, you can find that there are some of these similar, like, loud sounds that have no origin whatsoever, like just going across the atmosphere in strange places all over the place. I would think that investigatively you'd be finding dead ends right now, especially if the people on Bell Island are aware of the Bell Island boom. But that doesn't mean that you aren't finding completely similar instances happening in other places, even to this day. So I would probably start looking at similar instances happening now.
You know what? That's a great attitude. I heard recently a sound that I recorded the tail end of, which I would say is one of those sky sounds that you're talking about. Actually,
well, you're from Ontario, aren't you, Wolfman?
Yeah, man.
The Windsor hum happened?
Yeah, I haven't even told you about all the stuff that happens to me. Hey, Darren.
Yes.
Hey,
yes.
Darren, tell him all the shit that happens to me.
In a nutshell.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
But the Windsor hum's a unique thing. That's in Windsor, Ontario. They had a 35 hertz hum. I think they say it originates at Zug Island near Detroit, some kind of like a big commercial kind of or industrial type center there. But people have their doubts that that's where that's coming from.
Well,
there's going to be a massive explosion there.
Could it have been a
honestly? I think.
Go ahead, Alex.
Impressive. The fact that, these people on Bell Island aren't even aware that it happened, and he's already pulled up all these news clippings and articles and done, this much research and found out that there was a Russian scientist on the site and people from, Livermore there. I mean, he may not be able to find out what it was, but I mean, the fact that he dug up as much as he did on something that's got such an icy trail already, I mean, I think that he'd do great putting his talents on those other things that are happening nowadays if he really looked into them.
I am so spellbound by it. Your research, Jordan. I agree with Alex completely.
Could it be a meteor, guys? The big meteor that landed right there?
It would have had to have been a meteor that was a small one and just broke the atmosphere. No, that's impossible. No, it was.
And it wouldn't
was,
explain the electrical anomalies.
No, the electrical anomaly. It has to be some kind of electromagnetic pulse weapon test. That's what I think. I don't know.
Agreed. That's exactly what it sounds like.
I don't think we'll solve it tonight. That's what I think.
We could
But
try.
it could have also been a solar flare that actually penetrated the atmosphere and got through just like a needle through a haystack, basically, and just hit that one spot, and that is possible.
Yeah.
Aliens. It's aliens.
No, well, maybe.
Maybe we'll have someone call in that knows what it was. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, a good Newfie call in.
So we go to the last subject?
Yeah. What was our? What was the other subject?
Wolfman?
I was thinking of the
Shag Harbor.
Shag Harbor event.
Well, maybe we should. Are you going to have another break soon? Because we could start it after. I just wouldn't want to get started and have a break kick in.
We want to go to Shag Harbor next. Thank you for listening to Monster Castle Paranormal.
Well, we are here at the Monster Castle, and I believe we have to do an electrocution. Jeff? Yeah, Igor is ready. Yes, I'm here. There's a person that we have dragged into the dungeon that needs to be executed. He's really stupid. I don't like him. He believes in flat Earth.
No! No! No!
Can I do it? Oh, jeez.
No!
He didn't last
No!
long.
No!
A little bit more. Yeah. Oh, yes. He's done. He's done. He's done.
I returned to my hometown yesterday, having my life, when my eyes came flashing back. So much has changed and the places look so strange. Sometimes I wish that I was young again. But if I close my eyes, back to happy times. I can be 6 years old for a while. Honest friendships, high school dances, innocent short romances. Life was simple, but it sure was good somehow. And I drove to an old beach last night, a place I used to go not long ago. Walking barefoot in the sand, I saw 2 people holding hands, falling in love for their first time. But if I close
It's not the song I wanted.
Oh, yeah, baby, yeah. Oh, shit, yeah.
Did you hear the Wolfman in there with his stupid Jews harp? There he is. And there he is. But it's not the song I wanted.
What do you want?
I'm going to find it. I am going to find it. Wait a minute. Okay. Search. I think it's called Farewell to Nova Scotia. I'm looking for that. Where is everybody?
We're here.
You know
We're
what? You know what? I put Farewell in, and it came up within the first top 10. Farewell to Nova Scotia. Wow. The Irish Rovers. The Irish Rovers are the first ones that did it. You know with that.
Jordan made a song suggestion.
Oh my God! And it's also a Gordon Lightfoot. I want to hear the Gordon Lightfoot. What about you guys? Are you want to hear the Gordon Lightfoot? Oh, Moog Boy loves Mike Oldfield too, eh? Return to Omadon is coming out soon. Wondering if he's heard. Oh my gosh, has he heard the latest one with Sailing and Man on an Island? I was gonna play Man on the Rocks. Anyway, here we go. We're gonna do this.
Briny ocean tossed, will you ever heave a sigh and wish for me? I grieve to leave my native land. I grieve to leave my comfort's home. And my aged parents whom I always held so dear, the bonny, bonny lass that I do adore. Farewell, Nova Scotia, that sea-bound coast, that your mountains dark and dreary be. Oh, when I am far away on the briny ocean tossed, will you ever heave a sigh?
Stop it, Darren, why'd you do that?
Blame it on Darren.
Yeah.
Crap.
He did.
My fault.
Don't call my phone while I'm playing the song now.
Sorry.
So farewell, farewell to Nova Scotia's charm. With his early in the morning, I am far, far away. Farewell, Nova Scotia, that sea-bound coast, that your mountains dark and dreary be. Oh, when I'm far away on the briny ocean tossed, will you ever heave a sigh and wish for me? I have 3 brothers and they are at rest. Their arms are folded on their breast. Yet a poor simple sailor just like me should be tossed and driven on the dark blue sea. Farewell, Nova Scotia, that sea-bound coast, that your mountains dark and dreary be. Oh, when I'm far away on the briny ocean tossed, will you ever heave a sigh and wish for me? Farewell, Nova Scotia, that sea-bound coast, that your mountains dark and dreary be. Oh, when I'm far away on the briny ocean tossed, will you ever heave a sigh and wish for me?
All right, guys. That's beautiful, eh? Oh, man. Now that's old school.
All right. Good music.
All
there.
right.
I had to hear that. We had to do that. Okay, now let's go to the Shag Harbor incident.
Let's do it.
When was it?
The Shag Harbor incident was just about to. We're just approaching the 50th anniversary. It happened October 4th, 1967. In Shag Harbor, Nova Scotia. So this is again the eastern part of Canada.
By the way, that's
north.
1 year after I was born, and experimented on in the belly.
Shag Harbor incident, not well known in the States, but within Canada, among the the ufology community, very well known. People call it Canada's Roswell. It's seen as, I think, people who are really into the Canadians who are really into the UFO phenomenon think of it as much more compelling and much more credible than what happened in Roswell. What makes the Shag Harbor incident so compelling is the fact that so many people saw the same thing, that in so many unrelated people, independent witnesses, police were on scene, the Canadian Coast Guard was there, everybody saw something, and they all have a very similar story. But basically that story is that all across Nova Scotia for the days, and across Canada for that matter, for the days leading up to the incident itself, there was UFO sightings all over the place. But specifically that night, they call it the night of the UFOs because all across Atlantic Canada there are UFO sightings. But in Shag Harbor, where things really went down. The main eyewitness and the guy who's brought up the most when talking about it, his name is Laurie Wickens, and he was on an episode of my show sharing his story. But he, as well as I think 4 friends, were driving their car. They saw a series of lights above the tree line. It was a horizontal line of lights flashing on and off one after the other, kind of in a sequence. And he watched it. And when his initial thought was that it was an airplane and the lights were the wings of a plane. But as he was watching it, the line of lights, they seemed to be descending. And he started thinking, that plane's flying very low. And he started speeding up his car, kind of trying to keep up with it. And as he'd make the turns, he'd see it rise and fall above and below the tree line as the natural grade of the land rose and fell. But eventually, when he got up to the actual sound, which is like the actual water at Shag Harbor, he saw the set of lights from the sky cross the road in front of him and land into the water. Initially, they thought they were witnessing an aircraft, like an airplane, crash into the water. So they saw the lights go into the water. They stopped the car, looked out the window, and they could see a yellow light kind of under the water, which they assumed was the light on what they thought was a plane. So they then proceeded up the road a bit to the nearest payphone. And in 1967, they had payphones still, because this was before cell phones, which were more of a late 90s, early 2000s thing. So they called, I don't know if it was 911 or what, but they called like the local police. And the local police initially, when they reported, I think I saw an airplane crash. The local police kind of were rolling their eyes thinking, and said, like, are you sure? Because, that's really weird. But then right away, other calls started coming from other people from Shag Harbor reporting the same thing. And that was when police took it very seriously and basically told the guy who was calling, Laurie Wickens, to go back. We're sending police and, show them what you see. By the time Laurie Wickens showed up, there was already a few more people on the scene who saw it, and they were just, kind of gathering around. At this point, police showed up, Coast Guard showed up, people from all around Shag Harbor showed up. And what they saw was a pale yellow light just below the surface of the water, a good distance out into the water, and they watched that light slowly dissolve in deeper and deeper into the water until it was out of sight. They got on a Coast Guard ship as well as a fishing vessel and went out there to try to intercept it, thinking they were going to save a bunch of lives, expecting, bodies everywhere, because, again, thinking it was a plane crash.
Sure.
But when they got out there, all they found was a thick yellow foam that was said to be almost like what you'd find on the top of a lemon meringue pie.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, so they got out there and found that.
It was like a Boston Tea Party, but nobody, like everyone went out and started licking the foam. Right? Right, Jordan? That's what happened, right?
There has not been.
How
any
did it
reports
taste?
of that.
It made us really fucked up, man.
Yeah, but the
how big was the town, Shag Harbor? Was it pretty
oh,
popular?
it is a tiny little spot. I don't know if Shag Harbor has 1,000, maybe 5,000 people.
The first woman that licked the foam, her reaction was unmistakable.
I just looked
You
up the
couldn't
population.
stop her.
450 people live there. So this is a small area, but pretty much I'd say probably half the people that were there that night saw it. And they sent divers the next day and didn't find anything.
And the foam dispersed?
Yeah, the foam was gone by the next day because when it all went down, it was in the middle of the night. So they were with flashlights seeing this foam. And a lot of the people on the scene, like Shag Harbor's a fishing community, and the people that were there were fishermen from the area, and they said it was unlike any like natural sea foam. This was a whole different thing.
Have they explored the bottom?
But the next day, when the Coast Guards, they tried everything. They had divers down there for almost a week straight, and if you can find online, this was all over the papers. This was a big deal there because people were pretty sure something was in the water. Because so many people saw it land in the water, there was no explanation for what it was. And it's still unexplained. There has been reports of, at night, trucks pulling stuff out of the water. Because the search went on for about a week straight. And there has been reports that stuff was pulled out of the water and removed on truck. So some people think it was... There was also reports where about a week after the event... just as everything was kind of winding down, somebody who lives very near the water there, their TV wasn't working. The TV just went out all of a sudden. So they went outside to like adjust their satellite dish or their antenna or whatever, and they testified that they had saw lights leave the water and go into the sky. So some people believe it maybe was the whatever it was leaving.
Any witnesses to the trucks?
Yes, I think 3 people, but they were all together. So it was kind of, one group, although there were 3 of them, they're together, but that's different than, 3 separate people unrelated to each other. But I think there was 3 of them that said they saw that happen, had no proof, no photos or anything.
Are they still alive? Have you talked to them by chance?
They are, I think, as far as I know, they're still alive. I had not talked to them, nor have I talked to the person that said they saw the lights leave the water. I tried to get in touch with them without any luck. But I plan, with the 50th anniversary coming up, October of 2017, I plan to do more episodes about it. So I'm looking at different ways to investigate it, and that's something I'm thinking is to try to get in touch with these people.
I wish you could see the bottom of the ocean there.
Have they actually dredged any of that? My dad used to work for the Public Works Canada. I know a lot about dredging. Has anyone from the government publicized any dredging going on there?
Not that I've heard of. As far as I know, it was just divers that went down.
Because they have to dredge once in a while, these places. Once in a while. So if they dredge, then they must have hit something. That would be worth looking into.
Is it true that they had Navy ships there that spotted the something on sonar?
You know what? There's this whole subplot about Shag Harbor, about the Navy and the Coast Guard chasing something.
Okay,
over a period of time. But
Can I ask something? Because as my dad worked in Public Works Canada, I know a lot about harbors and stuff. Is this harbor a place where ships still dock today?
Oh yeah.
So then they definitely would have to dredge.
Yeah, but it would be small fishing vessels.
But they still have to dredge it once in a while. So they have to dredge it. It's a harbor. So they have to dredge it. So this is what we need to look into. I just thought of it. Actually,
And it's
if
not
we can
really
find
a
it, you know
harbor
what?
either. The area is called Shag Harbor. but
Okay,
it's
is it
not
off
really
the
a harbor.
ocean or is it off the St. Lawrence River? Or where?
Off the
It's off
ocean.
the ocean.
It's off the ocean.
The
Okay.
area is Shag Harbor, but the body
So
of water
maybe they
call
may
the
not.
Sound.
Yeah, maybe
and
they may
it's-
not dredge that.
Yeah, and it would be the vessels that would be going in and out of the Sound are
Unless vessels have to go in and out and dock there. If they do, then they would dredge it, and this is something we could look into and find out whether if there's any documents that probably no one's ever. I just thought of this. I don't think anyone else.
maybe you're the one to break the case.
Well, this could do it. If we find some dredging reports from Public Works Canada where they hit objects, strange objects, in that area. I just thought of it. That would be a way of proving this shit. Right?
Isn't there a like a submarine base near there, or within?
Yeah. Well, at the time when there was in Shelburne, which is nearby, there was a lot going on there with the military and Department of Defense. It's since wound down, but there was a lot more then, as well as things in that time. There was just more activity with the Department of Defense in Canada.
Actually, I didn't mean to say prove it. Actually, but find some evidence.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would love to dive there. If I could get there with a wetsuit, I would go down there looking around.
Well, it would kind of prove it. It would prove something if we found some evidence in that area. Everyone saw this. There's multiple witnesses. The strange foam afterwards. That's what she said. Right?
I don't get it.
Okay, Jeff?
Oh, yeah, it's pretty bad there, Wolfman.
I'm terrible.
It's kind of an unusual color, yellow, for a UFO.
Yeah, it is weird, but some people think it could have been a flare, but people say that or whatever, UFO. There is some reason, though, to believe that it could have been a flare, mainly because there was, at this time, there was a lot of surveillance being done overseas. Back then, before digital film, surveillance was on actual film, and the film canisters had to be returned to the military base for viewing. And oftentimes, what happened is the film canisters was in a container connected to a flare and dropped, and then somebody would come back and collect it, or it would have like a little receiver thing in it where they could find it. Some people believe it could have been a film canister being dropped and picked up by a submarine.
I wonder what would cause the foam. That's what's most interesting to me.
Yeah.
What would create foam? Would heat create foam?
I wonder if a flare being dropped into the water would create foam. And
actually,
the Shag Harbor Incident Society says it wouldn't.
No, that is definitely a chemical reaction.
Yeah, there's some of the fishermen said that they it was this yellow foam and it smelled like a sulfur, which is really, that would
sulfur
make sense. Again. Yeah.
Huh.
It's definitely a mystery, and it's been looked into like crazy. There's two really good books on the incident that I can think of. One's called Dark Object by Chris Stiles and Don Ledger, both of which were on episodes of my show. The other is called Impact to Contact. That's by Chris Stiles and Graham Sims. Both of these people really Chris Stiles, he's a ufologist from Nova Scotia. I did 2 episodes on Shag Harbor Incident, and he was on one of them. He's really the guy that brought the story into the public eye. It was a UFO sighting in '67. People knew about it, but it really just kind of just nothing happened with it until I think it was in the late 80s. He opened a reinvestigation where he just pulled all the documents out. He joined MUFON is what happened. He pulled all the documents out and just started going through it, and through the Access to Information Act or whatever it's called, he got a lot of new information. Yes, Freedom of Information Act. He got a lot of new information from the government, and as he started to reinvestigate, he was the one who uncovered the rest of the story that made it look much more compelling, and made it well known. So he's the guy. This is his story, really.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, it is crazy, and I'm really into UFOs. I'm a member of MUFON myself.
Have you seen anything?
Yeah, I have. I had seen a UFO when I was about 7 years old. Myself and my older brother and all the kids in my neighborhood, we were all at the top of my street, tobogganing or sledding in the snow. And it was sundown, so it was dark, and it was just around the end of the night. And I can remember it so clearly. Myself and my brother were at the bottom of the hill, and I was like, we're both holding our sleds, or the ropes connected to our sleds, making our way back up the hill to go down again. And then just out of nowhere, a light above us lit up the area, like brighter than daylight. Like it was just like glowing bright. And I just kind of remember shielding my eyes, and the brightness on the snow, I remember just like blinding me. And it just lasted for, I don't know, like it's hard to say because it was so intense, but maybe lasted for like 20 seconds or something. And I didn't look up at what it was, but whatever the bright light was, it was like right above us. And then I can remember just like a massive, like almost like if someone shuts a door, not so much like the door closing and that clicking sound, but just like the whoo, when like if you swung the door really quick, just the sound of it moving through the air. It was almost like that sound, but like so strong and powerful. And then the light went out, and all the kids, like the older kids, we all just started running, and the younger kids just started bawling and crying. So there's maybe 15 of us there or something. And we all ran home and all told our parents the same story. And that was the end of it. But that was, I think, what really got me into it was that happening. But unrelated, and I know it sounds kooky because, people roll their eyes at UFO stories, especially when someone says they saw something. But when I say I saw a UFO, I don't mean it was an extraterrestrial alien thing, just some bizarre thing in the sky that I don't know what it was. But my grandfather and grandmother also in 1986 had a sighting of a UFO that was reported to the you can even read about it on Wikipedia. It was reported to the government, and I don't know if it was investigated. It was ruled to be what's called a fireball, which is a type of meteorite. I don't know.
Okay, well that's my territory.
Yeah. So what they saw was said to be a fireball. My grandfather
really now.
That
okay. No, wait a minute. Back up. Explain the fireball. This is my expertise, actually.
Okay. I don't know much about it, but it was basically they were driving their vehicle in a very rural area. And
they saw a fireball go really slowly across the sky, very low to the ground. Looked like it was burning. Not only move
across the sky, my grandfather said it stopped above their car.
Yeah, and it moved.
Stopped above their car, he lost power of his vehicle.
I had one of them chase me, actually, in my field when I was irrigating. My brother took off. I hid in the ditch, and then I had a missing time event.
Interesting.
Did they have missing time?
No, they didn't. They were just scared out of their wits, is basically it.
Yeah, well, you know what? A lot of people don't even realize when they have a missing time event because they don't bother to look at their clock. And I didn't think about it till afterwards when I heard about missing time events. And I realized that, it was about 4 o'clock in the morning when I jumped in that ditch. And the next thing I knew, the light was coming up, and that's got to be 6 o'clock in the morning. So I must have had 2 hours missing time. So you really have to think about it. And like there's nobody that's over your shoulder monitoring what time it is for you.
So, get real quick though. Their car stopped working, and the fireball stayed over their car. How big was the fireball? How long did it stay there? Did their car start up again?
Yeah, their car started up again after the fireball left. And I'm calling it a fireball. My grandfather would be mad if he heard me saying this because he's like, it's not a fireball. Fireballs don't stop, is what he says over and over
Yeah, that's
again.
right. Yeah, exactly. It kind of puts you right out of perspective on reality.
Yeah, but
Did it smell?
No, I hadn't asked him that.
No,
but
they don't
he hadn't
smell.
mentioned
It's
it.
too high up. They're way up there, man.
Well, in his case, it wasn't way up there. He told me it was probably 25 feet above his car.
Yeah, but you know what? It's perspective. Unless
Yeah,
you have a tree branch in front of it and there's something that you can give some kind of a perspective to, that you really don't know how far that thing is away from you. I had one come right up to my face, okay? I could put my hand in front of it. Now I know how far it is away from me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the thing with UFO sightings, it's hard to say what it is because you have eyewitness accounts of something that's traumatic, and it's hard to get concrete information out of them. In fact, my grandfather's sighting and grandmother's sighting is what really started my podcast, because initially I was planning to do a short documentary about my research into their sighting, because I kind of took it on as like just sort of a pet project to try to figure out what may have happened to them. So I recorded a interview with him about it, and then I kind of went through every detail he gave me to try to just corroborate everything. So I looked into the historical weather data to confirm that the weather was as he said, and he was on a way to a wake for a friend who had passed away. So I pulled the death records to make sure the wake was when he said it was, because he knew the exact date because it was on his son's birthday. So I kind of confirmed everything. The weather matched. Every detail he told me matched. And as far as whether or not it's a fireball, one thing that was in the fireball's favor is that in nearby Newfoundland, which isn't too far from where my granddad had saw what he had saw, there was a meteor shower that night, and it was very clear skies in Newfoundland. Where he was, it wasn't clear skies. It was cloudy and overcast. So if it was a fireball or some type of object, it had to be below the cloud cover. So it was definitely low, whatever it was.
It was at nighttime?
Yeah, it was. It was. I think it was about 8 o'clock.
So they actually saw it below the cloud cover. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty much identical to what my parents described to me. I'm not kidding. And it moved and stopped, and what kind of and my dad said to my mom, "No, it's just a fireball. It's just a meteor." And my mom's like, "But Peter, it's stopped, and now it's moving different way, and it's so low, and it's moving so slow. That
Jordan
can't be a meteor. It can't be." And
Jordan, you got to get Wolfman on your podcast. He's seen 3 of these things.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I can tell you some stories about Lake Erie, dude. That'll freak you right out. I know
It's a
some
wild place.
Well, it's all my own experiences. I don't think anybody else knows about this shit except me.
I saw somebody just put up on the Skype the photograph of Shag Harbor. That was you, Jeff? Can you hear me, Jeff?
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah,
Well, there's
I can
other
tell you
people.
the story of that photo. So there is one photo of the Shag Harbor UFO sighting, and it's what you had put up. It's an odd looking photo because it was a time lapse photo. It was actually taken by a guy who his boat was in rough shape, so he decided to burn it, and he was taking time lapse photographs of himself burning his boat. And this is one of the photographs that he managed to take, and he managed to capture the lights in the sky. It was taken over, I think, a 15 or 20 minute exposure, and that's why when you look at the photograph, you see that the stars have a tail, because it's capturing the movement of the Earth, hence leaving the lines around for the stars. There's 3 lights that it captured: the purple light, and the red light, and then a yellow light to the left. The yellow light doesn't have any motion associated with it. The other two do have the line. So what the belief is that since the yellow light doesn't have motion associated with it in terms of the photograph, the yellow light must have been moving along with the Earth to prevent it from appearing blurred and like a stroke like the other things are. But that's a cool photograph.
I wish they would have taken a sample of the goo.
So, yeah,
the
that definitely would have helped.
I have a sample of the goo for you, Darren. And I will mail it to you. Jeff, make sure did you send him the other things to make sure that his mind will succumb to the... Yes. You will be... Yeah, just like the rest of you. You will all be... You will be... Yes, you will succumb. No. Yes. Never mind. That's just my evil plan. Anyways, so the oh man. So it went under the water, and that's what freaks me out. Around
USO, they call it, an unidentified submersible object.
That's what I dig, man. And it reminds me of like Atlantis and all those things. And now, you know, we've found out that if we drain the water that the ice, you know, that melted from the ice age, then we would have all kinds of stuff to look at, and it's really hard to look at it underwater.
I'd like to see what's under Antarctica.
Oh, dude, Antarctica is a whole different show, and I'm planning a show for that one too.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Oh yeah, Antarctica is a whole different show. I heard of a scientist that I'm trying to get a hold of that would. He's not going to give us his name, that's for sure. I might be able to get him on the show as an anonymous sort of person to talk about Antarctica.
I saw a picture of a mountain on Antarctica today. It's like a perfect looking pyramid.
The other person that I'd like to get on that show is Athena. Remember Athena?
Yeah.
And we could have her on as well, and I'll tell her ahead to have some information ready for Antarctica. She talks to aliens, Jordan.
Okay.
Her mother channels the Watchers. So basically, I can get any answer to any question I want. This is fucked.
In other words, you should have her on your show.
You know, Athena is amazing, man.
It sounds interesting.
And also, I'm gonna have Elizabeth April on my show on December 3rd coming up, and she is a very powerful psychic, and she could pretty much answer any question you want to.
Oh, cool.
So that's coming up.
Is there anything besides Shag Harbor and the Boom and the Oak Island up there that we don't know about?
Probably. If you go through my episodes, there's probably a whole bunch of them. I've done about 30 episodes. Well, yeah, 30 episodes so far, and all of it is Atlantic Canadian events. Not all of it in the realm of the paranormal or the mysterious, though. I cover true crime as well. So I have a few episodes up in that alley, but there's definitely other things that I've covered that you wouldn't have heard of. Cool one is there's a whole bunch of them, but the Bears Lake Mystery Walls is one of my favorite just because it's like at my doorstep. Basically, it's an unexplained archaeological site right in Halifax. It's basically just off the side of the road in a major industrial park. So we have like a Costco and a Walmart and a dollar store, and then across the street and kind of into the bushes a little bit is stone structures that nobody's been able to explain. In fact, the Nova Scotia Archaeological Society just got a government grant to do a bit more research this coming spring, where they're hoping to at least be able to try to date when these walls were built, but they haven't been able to explain it. I did an episode on them where I interviewed the guy who found the walls, the main archaeologist who's studying them, as well as a member of the Archaeological Society who's in charge of finding protection and basically lobbying the government to assign some type of act to protect the sites from people just walking up and knocking it over, basically. But that's
what's it look like?
It's actually 3 separate structures. One area is a stone wall that's 150 meters long. It's dry stacked masonry construction, so it's just stones on top of stones without any mortar or anything. It's about 1 meter high and 1 meter wide, so it's a big honking wall, 150 meters long, right on a ridge. So it's in the woods, and it's kind of just a natural hill. Right at the top of the hill, this wall runs along a winding path, so it's not like a straight line, like a property line or something. So that's one structure. The other is this area they call the Stairway to Nowhere, which is basically just a complicated stairway built into the side of that hill that's near the wall, and it just seems really unusual and overbuilt up because you could just walk up the hill. There's no need to put this complicated staircase there. And the third structure, is, we call it the 7-sided structure, and it looks like the foundation of a building using those same dimensions. It's 1 meter wide, meter high, dry stacked stone. But it's looks like the foundation of a building, except it's a weird shape. It's 7 sides rather than like a square you'd expect. It's 7 sides, and in the center of it, there's kind of another area that's kind of sealed off with a wall. So it's kind of like a sort of like an octagon shape, but there's kind of a line through the center of it where there's a separate kind of 2 areas. But the big mystery is what it could have been used for. And some people think maybe farmland, but it like if you were a farmer, you would build a wall with not big heavy stones stacked up. It's more military in nature, but given the location, there's no reason for there to be any military activity there because it's in the middle of nowhere.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Does the octagon face north by chance?
Well, it isn't an octagon. That was just the best way to describe it. And there's no way to know really what the front or the back is.
We're going to have to go into another... we're going to definitely have to go into another... if you're willing to, another live show right after this one. And keep on going.
I definitely don't have another one in me.
No, eh?
I don't either.
No. This...
maybe tomorrow?
Not tomorrow, but maybe soon.
Okay.
I have a lot coming up. I'm working on now with my show out. There's a specific case that is the one that I probably dedicate the most time to. It's a missing person from Victoria, British Columbia. Her name.
Can you say a few things about this this satchel you found, this notebook that you found, and a little bit about that and how it related back to a 9-year-old woman who couldn't believe you found that.
Yeah, that's a bizarre story. Basically, the short version of it is I was walking home from work, and my phone's battery was dead, so I needed something to do because I couldn't listen to music or anything. And it was the end of the school year, so there was I saw a bunch of garbage on the side of the road, and a lot of it was books, so I assumed it was some kids threw away their school books. And I picked one up, and I was just my thought was I wonder what the kids are learning about in school these days. And I started flipping through it, and it was just like a journal where it was from cover to cover just writing, cursive, handwriting. And I was reading it, and immediately I was like, oh my God, kids are way smarter now than they were when I was a kid, because it was really well written kind of journals outlining this person's day. And right on the inside cover, it said Eva Smith, grade 8. And the first entry is September 10th. She talks about what she did and who she was with and such. But as I'm reading it and realizing how smart she sounds, I'm also noticing the language is a little weird. The words she's using are weird. and there's just slang in there that just didn't make any sense. But it wasn't. So I read it as I walked the whole way home, and it wasn't until maybe 3 days later, because what I did was I'd just be sitting on the couch and I just open it up and just start flipping through it, reading stuff. I started reading about an entry about the passing of King George, and I remember thinking like, oh, I didn't know there was a king, and I also didn't know the king died, and I just didn't think anything of it. And then like 2 pages later, it was talking about next month Princess Elizabeth will be visiting Nova Scotia by train, and that's when I was just like, what the hell?
This is old.
This is old. So then I went online and I thought about King George. So I Googled when he died, and I don't remember the date, but it was like 60 something years ago. And then I Googled Princess Elizabeth, Nova Scotia. And then I found out she, in fact, before she was Queen Elizabeth, she was the princess, and she actually visited Nova Scotia. And that's when I was just like, holy shit, like this is super old. So then I started going through it with a way keener eye, trying to pick stuff out. I also took, I made the decision to try to figure out how the book ended up there, try to figure out why the book was in perfect condition. Like it looked brand new. Like I thought it was a brand new school book. So I ended up taking a bunch of photos, finding all the information I could, like the names and the places and the dates. And I put it all up on Reddit is where it all started. And I was trying to get people to help me track this person down, or I assumed she was long dead. So I was trying to track down her kids realistically. And then the local news and stuff got involved, and they helped me publicize my search. And then it only took maybe 5 days after the media got involved, or 4 days, and I managed to find her. She lived in a nearby town. So I went to her house with the news crew and stuff, and I gave her the journal back, and she was just like, she saw a ghost, because what she told me is that she never owned that journal. She never threw it away.
Okay, wait. We only have a few minutes left. Now, I want to know how you felt when you brought that to her.
Yeah.
How proud were you?
Oh, I felt awesome.
After all your
work. She
work.
was the sweetest old lady. She was so thankful, and just so like seeing her flip through it. I don't know. I'm really close with my grandmother. I won't say I was raised by my grandparents.
Mother Goddess bless this man.
Yeah, but anyway, I felt awesome, and it was a really cool experience, and it was definitely like for her, it was something. It was great, like to get a journal that you wrote, 65 years ago about things you and all your friends that are all now dead did. Like, because she was saying, like, as she's reading it, she said, like, all these people have passed away. So it's just, that would be really special.
This is a whole other show. You're gonna have to come back on. We got 3 minutes left.
You need to write a book
thank
about
you
that.
so much. Thank you
No,
so
my
much
pleasure.
for coming on, Jordan.
No problem. I love
you,
chatting.
man. Anytime.
If you go to my website, nighttimepodcast.com, I have links to a lot of the articles, because that was covered by the media.
Plug
quite a
all
bit.
your websites right now. Plug everything. And thank
All
you,
right.
everyone, for listening. And thanks, Darren. Thank you, Jeff, my monster crew, and my wolf pack. And thank you.
And the freaks.
My wolf pack, actually, we
monster
was
freaks.
just monster freaks. But in my castle, we have many other freaks besides just wolf men. So I'd rather say monster freaks and a monster crew. But okay, but then my wolf pack is definitely you guys. Everyone out there.
Oh, yeah, because I am the wolf man, and I'm going to dig it. I'm going to give you some rock and roll now to lead you out. Yeah.
All right. Anybody else have something to say? Say it now, please. We got like 1-2 minutes left. Go for it. Your time. It's your time, Jordan.
Let's just count down from 120.
Oh, no.
Hey,
All right, let's get this
Jordan,
going.
can we see that news footage of the old lady?
We should be doing this. We're gonna get booted out of here. Bubs, with a host, they can't kick us out. So if you
Yeah,
want to play a song,
you
you're gonna
cannot.
play a song.
Where did you guys get all this stuff?
Well, these music dummies shouldn't be leaving stuff in their vans, should they?
Oh, my God.
Good luck.
There's not even a strap onto it, Ricky.
Ricky, find him a strap.
Oh, my God, Julian, we're going to get booted out of here.
Bubs, listen to me. I was talking to the producers. I know I'm in charge now. No problem. Oh my God, Ricky. There you go, buddy. Good luck, buddy. That's not a proper strap. Can't just strap it to me. Expect me to do it. I'm nervous as F right now, but this is a song. Play down at the Legion back home. I hope you like it. Liquor and whore, liquor and whore, cigarettes and dope and mustard and bologna, liquor and whore.
Liquor and whores.
Drinking at the Legion. I met a girl, she was nice, she was pretty and pleasing.
Oh yeah!
She said, hey boy, we should do some marrying. I said,